Now, this is a very indirect approach. The classic answer is it doesn't have to do with PR, and it doesn't have to do with marketing. PR is problem set driven, and marketing is product driven. But what we're talking about is neither. What we're talking about is influence and messaging, and we're also talking about presenting your case of the story. So when I hear, as I hear too often, how atrocious Hollywood is in portraying the message, my answer is simple. How much money do you put into the problem? Okay? It's a it's a money-driven issue. So if you decide to hire somebody to produce a script to tell a story, it's fiction like everything else is fiction, but it's an investment into messaging. And this is the part of you have to start accepting that there's a different way of doing business out here, and messaging is part of it. And that has to go into your global strategies. And it's not just, like I said, just coming up with, oh, this is a great thing we want to tell. It has to be looked at in the sense of the social context and the audiences that you're trying to receive or send to.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. Con artists and abusers are only able to continue when their victims are too scared to speak out. This one ends here. Back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. It's Thursday, and we don't normally do a show on Thursday. The Revolutionary Revivalists normally do, but they have graciously said that we could continue our coverage on exposing the mask and the lies behind the man that is known as
And of
Scott
course, there goes the
Kesterson.
dog upstairs, and I have to go make sure the door is shut.
We have a little puppy that is staying with us, and his name is Max, and he is adorable. And you know what? I'm actually really glad that happened because for those of you that don't normally tune in to our program, you may not know just how informal and how real our show is. And I was thinking about this today, praying about tonight, been praying all day about tonight, honestly, even after yesterday. And I need to tell you guys that you have been amazing, overwhelming. The responses that I started getting even while the show was still going, and then afterwards, I've spent the phone all day. I've spent the day on the phone, fielding calls, messages, and just, I've cried a lot because you guys have been hurt so badly and no one has given you a voice. And I said this in the email that I shot out today. I'm amazed at how one man can have hurt so many people individually, much less as a whole on his program. And that to me is heartbreaking. And so we aren't doing this show for ourselves. And I said that last night, but I want to say it again. We're doing this show to give a voice to the voiceless.
Raise your hands if you ever wanted to do a show about Scott Kesterson.
Leah's like standing here like, I did not want to do this. We did not want to have to do this. We're not doing this because, oh, wow, this really sounds great.
It took many months and many conversations and a current con that is running right now.
Happening at this moment.
And our family almost being ripped apart and destroyed.
Yeah. That's not the current con that's being run, but
no.
We got that one taken care of, thank God. But I just wanted to jump right in because I remember I was saying what I was praying to. I've been talking to God all day long about this, leading into tonight. And I just felt like the Holy Spirit was saying, Michelle, don't stop. Don't let your foot off the pedal. Just keep going. Because I want to stop and I want to take the time. Like every story deserves an hour-long show. Mm-hmm. Every story deserves all of this. Like my gut it's been in knots because of all of these stories that you guys are telling me. And I'm like, okay, God, we're going to stay focused tonight on the continuation of the research that we have done over the past 8 months. and Leah even longer. Leah's been doing research for since May of last year. But just for those of you that missed last night, I would highly encourage you to watch it, because I'm not going to do like a recap of everything that we talked about last night, but there are a lot of things that we did talk about last night that we are going to expand. However, we had a phone call today for at least 2 hours. Is it 2 or 3 hours? With someone that has been very, 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 very close to Scott. And it was an eye-opening phone call, a phone call that I wanted to have prior to our shows that we're doing. And it didn't happen because I wasn't sure where this person was at. And this may not mean anything to any of you, but it really meant something to me. I was able to tell him my story that I'm going to tell on Tuesday. And not only did he believe me, he affirmed me, and he encouraged. Mm-hmm. And that was huge, absolutely huge. And he reached out to us, and he said, I was watching your show, and I need to affirm the things that you're saying on your show. So that was really big. So we blocked out a giant chunk of the day to do that, because it was very, very, very important. And so not only do we have the confirmation of the people that continued to message us all night and all morning and throughout the afternoon, and, phone calls and emails and comments and all of that. It's an open and closed case, even without all of those. Mm-hmm. But thank you for sending them, and please continue to do so, because it's really important. And at some point, we would like to do a Resistant Chicks family Zoom call to give you guys an opportunity to tell your story, so that we're not just being the only ones with the voice. If you want to be brave enough to say, this is what happened to me, we're going to, Lord willing, give you guys the chance to do that. So tonight we're going to continue on. Now, the title that we went with tonight, Show Us the Money.
Where's the money, Scott?
Where's the money, Scott? We are going to get into is my mic extra loud? It feels loud. That we're going to get into the con that Scott did in 2013, 2014, and the con that he did and tried to run over the chili issue, and the con that is happening right now. Where's the money? Show us the money.
Mandolin Farms.
In all of the phone calls that we have had, the overwhelming theme that everybody wants to know is what happened to the money. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about it. But in order to get to the current con, we have to give you more backstory. We had hoped to start with that yesterday, but God led the show in a different direction, which that's what we're letting God do. Mm-hmm. So we're going to start off with prayer. God, we just thank you so much for tonight. We pray that our words will be completely from you and of you and through you, that you will put a bridle on anything that we would say that would step outside of what you want us to say tonight, and we will only say the words that you would have us say tonight. I pray that the people that are tuning in tonight will receive a message from the Holy Spirit. This is not an expose to gossip or to, be theatrical. It's to help set people free. And that's the messages that we've been getting. And I thank you, Father God, that people are getting set free, and they are very grateful. And I thank you that we do not have to be under the spell. We don't have to be under the thumb of the devil, keeping us in an illusion or a delusion. We can be set free, because who the Son has set free is free indeed. We give you all glory, honor, and praise. We pray that tonight no one will look at us, no one will look at Scott, no one will look at anything other than you, eyes on Jesus, and that this show will do nothing other than set the captives free and bring people into the kingdom of God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Yeah, so in starting with scripture, which is the kind of the most important thing, have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Ephesians 5:11.
And 2 Corinthians chapter 11 here, where it was talking about false prophets. And I know a lot of you have said, are we still supposed to pray for Scott? Is there still redemption? That's not a question. That's not the question to be asked right now, to be honest with you, because it's not about that. It's about finding the truth. Amen. So I'm going to read this scripture here. And 2 Corinthians 2:11 and 12. 11 verse 12. And I will keep on doing what I'm doing in order to cut the ground from under those who want an opportunity to be considered equal with us in the things that they boast about. For such people are false prophets, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles. And no wonder Satan himself masquerades himself as an angel of light. It's not surprising then if his servants also masquerades as servants of righteousness. Their end will be the end of their actions. And I want to read to you a scripture that little Leah sent to me, sent to our little group chat today. because she's always sending great scriptures.
Yeah, she does good.
And she says, Titus 1:15, for there are many rebellious people full of empty talk and deception, especially those from the circumcision party. It is necessary to silence them. They are ruining entire households by teaching what they shouldn't to get money dishonestly. To the pure, all things are pure. But to those who are defiled and unbelieving, nothing is pure. In fact, both their mind and their conscience are defiled. They claim to know God, but they deny them by their works. They are detestable, disobedient, unfit for any good work. So when you're going to say to me, should we still pray for Scott? I'm going to say Titus 1, Scott. Titus 1. To the pure, everything is pure. But to those who are defiled, and when you hear that story, he is defiled, and unbelieving, nothing is pure. In fact, both their mind and their conscience are defiled. They claim to know God, but they deny them by their works. They are detestable, disobedient, and unfit for any work. I feel like most people, when it comes to calling out a wolf, constantly are applying scriptures for sheep.
That's good.
And I want to be clear here tonight, and I want to, for some reason, people have a strange ability when it comes to Christianity, not Epstein, not Clinton, not anybody else. When you're applying it to somebody who's calling themselves a Christian, to apply it to you. God, well, you're just saying,
if this happened to me, this is how you would be treating me. Is that what you're saying?
No,
like, if I'm the one that committed this crime, this is how you'd be treating me?
No, not even the crime, because you haven't committed this crime.
Exactly.
But if I have sinned,
right,
you're equating this crime to a sin, because Christians only sin, they can't commit crimes. So Christians automatically just need to be forgiven. And that's the world that we live in. That was
tongue-in-cheek.
That's the world that we live in the church. Okay? You're right, because 1 John says that. Okay? If you're a Christian, you don't sin. You don't need to sin. But he is faithful and just to forgive us our sin and to cleanse us of all unrighteousness.
God's grace is there for you.
So when you are there and you are fully repentant of anything, I just want to be clear. His grace is for you. His mercy is wonderful. He is there to wrap you in his arms. He is there to take every horrible, awful thing that has happened to you or through you or by you and turn it into something wonderful and great and big.
There is now
no condemnation to those are in Christ Jesus.
Those who are in
Christ
Jesus. You have to be
who walk
in
not
Christ
after the flesh,
Jesus,
but after the Spirit.
Amen.
Okay? And so that's what we're talking about. I just want to set that clear. Okay?
Did you get any messages like that today? I didn't.
No.
I have not gotten, since we did our show last night, just so you guys, again, to encourage you, for, out of the mouth of two or more witnesses, again, with the overwhelming responses that I got overnight and all day today.
I need to encourage people.
I did not get a single negative message. I only got affirming and confirming messages.
So I think people are done hearing what we have to say. Just kidding. What do other people have to say? And can we share any of that?
Yeah, we absolutely can. So I would like to address, from, let's see, I don't know if I want to do names.
Let's do Sweden. That one was good.
Okay.
That wasn't on Signal though.
No, it was not on Signal.
Was it an email?
I'm in my emails right now.
Was it an email?
Yeah. Sorry, there's been so many messages today. There's, let's see. I'm still going through them. Hang on. Wait, I'll get there. I'll find it. There it is. Many thanks for your broadcast. Must have been a real struggle to make the decision to expose Scott. I'm not shocked and answered some questions I had. Not much adds up with Mr. Kesterson. The dog lady first told me about Scott shooting the dog. I have some contact with her. I'm going to skip over that. Anyhow, I thought out of nowhere that nothing will happen with Flemingsburg. I searched it and I saw that it was still for sale for $875,000. I donated. He's in Sweden. $250 US for a brick for my father, and have thought that will never happen. And I wonder what happened to that money. I do not listen to his podcast as much, maybe one out of every 3 or 4 episodes. That's still a lot. He has been revealing himself too much of late. I have seen how he starts projects and nothing comes of it. No mention. He is good at sweeping his scams under the rug. When I heard that the Bards Nation social is shutting down, my first thought was it will never come back, and I made a note to never return if it did. I deleted the account just today. I have experience with a strong, charismatic person I called a cult leader, which is how I look at him. A lot more than a little bit off. Anyhow, best wishes, and don't worry about demonic attacks. Look at demons and their tools or weak minions as having no power only the power that you give them as little ankle biters. Now, this one is the next one I'm going to skip the name of. And I'm going to read this email. I was a diligent listener to his podcasts. I would have been, let me go to the very first message that I got here because the email is a little bit difficult here. No, I guess that is the first message. Is it? No, hang on. Let me find it.
Said Leah Michelle at the top.
I know, but there's another one that she sent. The initial one.
Are we allowed to
I'm not doing names.
no, the chili ladies.
Right, but I want to finish this. This one is important.
I was gonna keep it going.
Okay, I'm sorry. As I was so encouraged to be a part of something so seemingly faithful, he always talked about how Bard's Nation was a family. This is her original message. And that is the main reason I emailed and I called him with my concerns, approaching it like Matthew 18, coming to him directly, humbly, and with the true intention of correction in and through the Holy Spirit. He responded to my reaching out publicly via the podcast. He did not give my name, but he was quite harsh, saying how rude it was for me to cold call him like we were friends. It showed the opposite of what he was always talking about on air, that we were a family. My explanation of how I got the number and why I called is in the forwarded message. After that, I tried once again to come directly to him with my concerns, and that message was received with even more animosity, as you can see below. Like I said, I wanted to reach out to you to share what had gone on, but I knew in the spirit that you would have asked him and gotten a spin story and would have turned against me, so I just stepped away from him and Bard's Nation, but I kept following you too. Thank you again for responding and for your unwavering commitment to Christ. Now, I'm going to be honest. When I first read that message, even not the hackles stood up, but like I'm used to, like, I don't like to get messages from people just out of the blue, like, you're wrong, here's this. And I know how those messages go because people are, every single one of those that I have ever gotten has been rude and mean.
Especially if somebody just kind of gets your number, but she actually.
But then I read
how she got the
how
number.
this went. She got the number because
somebody had set up a fake site.
Somebody had set up a fake coffee, Expedition Coffee instead of Cafe. And it had Scott's number. And so she said, I'm going to read this. She said, I just listened to episode 655 in which you addressed. Scott. Yes. The message that I left regarding this euphoria branding and the DNA testing and stuff like that. I am about a month behind because I don't want to miss any episodes. But I have limited time to listen. First, I want to say thank you for being such a powerful voice for God and truth. I am consistently blessed by your podcast. Secondly, I need to apologize for blind calling you and provide some clarification on how I got your number. I have attached the screenshot from my Expedition Coffee profile to show you that your number is listed on that page. I did not mean to be rude. I genuinely was led by the Holy Spirit to call because of the perceived conflict in messaging. I actually had been having the conversation with God for a few weeks on whether or not to reach out. So when I heard you talking so fiercely against the DNA testing, God confirmed that I needed to. I would have emailed, but I thought I already had. Checking my sent items shows that I, in fact, had only started to but never finished again. I am terribly sorry for any lack of etiquette. I very much appreciate you taking the time to answer my question. I would never have gone looking for your personal cell phone number. I called that number because it was provided on the account profile page. When I heard the voicemail message, it did not sound like your voice, so I thought it was a phone that someone else possibly monitored or screened for you. I genuinely feel awful that I was a source of irritation for you during your Paul Revere Patriot road trip. God bless you. I am truly grateful for this podcast and the Bard's Nation family. I've never received a correction email like that before. Now I'm going to get to what she was saying. But he says, hello, thank you for the email. I am also grateful for the screenshot. Yet another negative on the company doing Expedition Coffee. Your concerns are heard, and I felt it was important to air the answer rather than just respond to you. I have been struggling with the issue with this company for a few months. As I stated on the show, I do not and will not promote these products. That said, I also have opened up exploration to a new set of products. The Father is leading. Blessings to you. Kindest regards. Now, I think this is after that. Let me look at my dates here. Make sure I'm getting this in order. So after that, I think, let's see, this is January 31st, 2023. So yeah, this is after that. She says, Scott, I know you felt that I overstepped boundaries in the past. So I pray you receive this message as it is intended, as prompted by the Holy Spirit. As I was listening to this episode 1993 this morning, my spirit was grieved to hear you refer to Satan as a PUSSY who got his ASS kicked. Use of such vulgarity is beneath you, and while the sentiment resonates, that specific term is not in alignment with biblical speech or leadership. Let no unwholesome word proceed from your mouth, but only such a word as is good for edification according to the need of the moment, so that it will give grace to those who hear. Ephesians 4:29. Cursing in a moment of righteous indignation or even frustration is not the same as choosing a term with a sexually derogatory connotation. Again, it is my hope that you will hear this message as it is intended. You are one of the few voices I can count on to provide biblical meat in these times, and I truly am blessed to be a part of Bard's Nation.
And that was January 31st, 2023.
Scott's response is so classic. This is what he does. He hits you upside the head and shrouds it in kindness. Thank you for your email. Please do not email me again. You have somehow assumed you have a role of being a, quote, police for this account. I wish you well. I will not respond or read future emails. You have overstepped, and it is not in line with anything I receive from Father.
Well,
Blessings.
can I just say right now, God is not using the PUSSY and saying kick the and devil and to the coffee with Jesus, and he's slipping and using the SHIT word towards Michelle and I. Yeah. That's not what
Scott
you're receiving from Father.
Constant conversations
about
his cursing and his language. And he finally
stopped cursing around us.
After I got very explicit with him. And I said, if you use the F word around me one more time, I'm done. I said, I'm going to tell you what it means. And I was like, this is what it means. And you know what it means. And I do not want to ever be talked to like that ever again. You are not a man of God if you're doing this. And he stopped cussing after that, mostly. Okay. But prior to that moment, I was constantly grieved and hurt at not just the curse words, but just like this person pointed out, the sexual
connotations
words that he would constantly use. And everybody hates that he
everybody
uses these
knows
words.
what the P word means. And when you say that, there's a visualization there. You're not supposed to use it, guys.
And he constantly, and somebody called this out in the comment section yesterday, calls women whores and sluts. That's his go-to. If he doesn't like you, you're a whore and a slut, regardless of whether you are or not.
Or you're a man.
Or you're a man. You're a whore, a slut, or you're a man. I can only imagine what he's saying about me now, because he knows that that's one of my weaknesses. Don't call me a man. But one of the things that was left in the comment section, again, Leah and I did not watch his program or listen to the program.
I listened to the Coffee with Jesus for, I think, 15 minutes at 2 time.
So
15 minutes.
You mean this last one?
The one on Sunday.
Right. I mean, in general, we didn't.
Oh, no, we never never listened to his program.
Every once in a while I'd pop in just to be a part of the chat, to be nice.
I don't know how he ran his show.
But somebody left a comment on yesterday's show. And so you guys that have watched his show may know this. Apparently, Scott claims that he used to go to strip clubs for interviews to get inside of the head of like strippers.
Nuh-uh.
And he has talked about that on his show. I can't confirm that.
Can you
I don't
guys
know.
confirm that in
and
the
so I
chat?
asked her to expound on that. And she goes, no, just over the years, he's talked about it, that he got a lot of information. And then they were saying that using the word whores and sluts just doesn't jive when you said that.
What kind of interview are you doing in a what do you?
I don't know. So there's that. I'm not going to read the other email, but just as we were going through the list yesterday, Leah, to continue with that,
Yes,
of things that got started and never got finished. Mm-hmm. We got an email from the person that was going to write the book, surrounded around county by county. Mm-hmm. And there were a lot of communications that he had talked to several of the inside core people. And I remember Scott coming to me and telling me how excited that he was about that situation. And that it was going to be super cool, that this guy was going to do this book and it was going to be awesome. And it was going to have a field manual with it and everything. Mm-hmm. And again, just like so many things that Scott would come on air with and get super excited with that fell
and
through.
Get other people to work on.
And so this person started working on it.
Yes.
Started and did like all these, chapter headings. And they even emailed me a couple of times today, like, I would actually like to finish this project. But because Scott didn't follow through, even though in the beginning it was like full on, we're doing this. And that's what Scott does all the time. He gets you excited. Like, for sure, that's what happened with our Plymouth event. We are doing this. I am with you. And then he goes and tells everybody and then drops the ball. That can be just the sign of being a crummy person with bad follow through. And just to be clear, if that was what the only thing that we were dealing with was a person that just has no follow through in the promises that they make, we would not be doing this show. Okay. Again, we are talking about criminal, sociopathic, con artist behavior that is at a level that I have never encountered in my entire life. Now, if you guys watched the intro, we chose a clip that we're going to get to tonight to highlight just how much Scott is good at mastermind manipulating and messaging, right? So as I've read so many comments today. I was mesmerized by his show. I was addicted to his show. I couldn't stop listening to his show.
That's because he was trained and wrote papers and hired by the government with a contract.
Trained by the government.
He had a contract for $454,000 by the government to create what's called transmedia and use messaging to control people.
Exactly.
So what does Scott do right now? Use messaging to control people. He literally had a government contract to create a government manual on how to use messaging and media. It's called transmedia, meaning audio, visual, and storytelling. And this was what he was like here. But the problem is, I think for the DOD is that, well, maybe his arrest had something to do with it. But also, it's really hard to use transmedia on Afghanis. So, or
you
people in the Middle
there.
East.
You have to
Okay, so he had this idea for transmedia using audio, visual storytelling. That's going to be first world countries, not the Middle East, not some Bedouin in the village.
It's called asymmetrical warfare. And the special forces use this a lot. We learned a lot today in our phone call with someone very special. And a lot more than even I had known. And someone who knows a lot more than I do about even these topics and what Scott did. And so we got a lot of information
how he learned,
today,
what he trained
and how
under.
he learned and who he trained under and where he was at. But he was, I believe, chosen to do a lot of these things because he's so good. Mm-hmm. And he has written a lot of papers. And Leah has a lot of that up tonight. So, please, we're going to jump right into that right now. Did I pray? Yes,
you
we did.
did.
We did.
And actually,
did you want me to do the chili lady thing first or no?
Yeah, go and do chili lady.
All right. So chili lady,
okay, we have
you guys know her as Mila.
We have dog lady and chili lady. Okay. So the dog lady put something in the chat and it's very confusing for all of us to figure if this is true.
Yes.
We're trying to figure out how this happened. Supposedly.
We just found this out live yesterday.
Supposedly, Scott made up a story that the dog warden said the dogs needed to be put down. Supposedly, he is such a bad shot that he just randomly machine guns. No, I'm kidding. Like, how do you miss a dog? He shoots at the dog, somehow misses Nika, hits Ezekiel, kills Ezekiel, but then wishes he could kill Nika instead.
But then if it was mandated that he did it, then why didn't he go ahead and have Nika put down too? So none of this makes any sense.
And then even that, if you're mandated to kill the dog, you just put food down and you just shoot the dog. I mean, it's horrible that you have to do that, right? But usually I would think that the dog warden would make you go to a vet and do that. Like, you don't get to just shoot your dog.
I cried about that today.
I did too. After the show, when I heard about from Chili Lady and I heard about Dog Lady, the emotions came. Right now, guys, we're in a zone.
Yeah.
Okay. When this turns off, we are emotionally exhausted because these stories are so real and there is a person behind each one. Okay.
So this is from, you guys know her name, so I don't need to keep this a secret, from Mila. She says that she was just going to keep knitting her sweater and she wasn't going to comment. But then when she heard us mention Chili Lady, she thought she'd better pop in so that we didn't think that she was associated with any kind of fraud or crime. She says, I'm grateful for his podcast for one reason only. I became saved. Doesn't God work in mysterious ways? That said, I wanted to do a revival in my very tiny mountain village. When Scott suggested going to Bard's fests globally, I said, sure, why not? He made so many promises and talked me into a property lease with an option to buy.
Wait. He talked her in to a property lease in her name that she's going to have to pay off. And he's promising her, no, we'll raise the money for you.
Thank God that fell through, even though I put several hundreds of dollars into that property for improvements that needed to be done in preparation for the event. He told me that he was lining up speakers, etc. I made reservations at a local place for their cabins for a period of time during our tourist season.
And he told us he was too.
I found an interpreter and almost purchased some very expensive equipment for sound. As the date drew near, I told him that I needed to firm up the speakers list so that we could make 2 flyers that someone could put in town 2 hours away. He yelled at me and told me to be patient or to change the date.
Of course
so I changed the date.
Of course he did.
And waited and waited.
And waited.
Meanwhile, I was getting ready to butcher some goats and purchase some lambs and hogs in order to feed the people, all at my own expense. I guessed $8,000 would pay for everything. When I tried to invite a few people from Bard's, he yelled at me and told me that one woman I asked to come to speak was a tramp and she just trolled for men. He told me to disinvite these people, and like a dummy, I did. Then came the Flemingsburg event. I watched on the live stream, and at one point, I heard the voice shout in my head, "Missionary Mary." That's a whole other story, but she was the most evil, corrupt con artist on earth and was my grandmother. She made me distrust religious people when I was just a child. Anyway, I never had what I considered at the time an auditory hallucination. I was so confused. I actually confessed that to Scott, told him the whole sordid story of Missionary Mary, and asked for his forgiveness for even considering that God might have been warning me.
Oh, you all did this. Just like the other lady.
Yeah.
Oh, Scott, I'm so sorry.
I feel like such a dupe. Well, he accepted my apology and then prayed for me.
Of course he did.
He's a cult leader. Thank God, the lady who owned the property for which I was paying rent said that her son did not want her to sell. Oddly enough, I felt relieved. Then another place came available, and it had a house that was just one giant room with a kitchen and a bath on the back, some land with some fruit trees, and next to the river. The asking price was $17,000. That is when Scott said that we should fundraise for it. I didn't feel right about it, but I agreed anyway. When he announced it on his show, he said it was $37,000.
Of course he did.
I almost vomited. Why? Then I thought about my, quote, auditory hallucination again, but chose to ignore it. I still felt that I wanted to hold a revival, but I didn't want money from anyone. I spoke with one of the people who lives near me, and we found a place for free. It was small, but I didn't care because I knew in my heart that God didn't want something big or expensive. Good thing, too, because Scott bailed at the last minute. Thankfully, I was able to cancel the reservation for the cabins and let the interpreter know that I didn't need one before they suffered any financial loss. Phew. We kept it local and had about 40 people. Mind you, this is a very small community with only about 100 residents between 2 pueblos, one of which is about 60 miles from me. It was beautiful. Then God spared me from another of Scott's scams, the bricks. I wanted to get 2, one for each of my sisters who had died. However, Chilean banks don't allow for overseas donations. Purchases, yes, donations, no. So that was out. Hallelujah. The final straw for me was his blasphemy. He called the Holy Spirit feminine. Now, I'm not a pronoun Nazi except for the Holy Spirit. He is always referred to as he, him in the Bible. I couldn't listen to Scott any longer. It took a long time to recover from my experience with him, but God has gotten me through. I do what I can with what I have. So far, I am just going to focus on gardens and making sure that I can be a good witness for Jesus. So I contacted her back over on Signal, and she was amazing. She also tells me, and this is your experience, it was mine. She says, I didn't sleep last night. I had no idea just how deep his deception was. I guess I still don't. She said that she sent an email, not sure how cohesive it was. And she said that she hasn't done an all-nighter in a long time. I did not sleep last night either. And I know many of you guys probably didn't. And so I asked her if she ever actually got any money from any fundraising from Chile. And she said, no, he never said anything except that there was a problem with the Give, Send, Go. Of course, in hindsight, he never mentioned any problems with them until I said that I was going to open a separate bank account at the bank here so that there would be no commingling of money, and that every peso would be accounted for, and that the account would be created as a charitable account, not personal, that would have oversight by a small trustworthy committee. Oh, wow. Well, I'll probably jump on for a bit tonight. So anyway, I'm going to give her a call tomorrow and talk with her and hopefully get more with that story. But here's the thing.
Both of us remember specifically. I don't know if it's true because we know that Scott stretches the truth. I remember Scott being so excited because he's like, somebody came up and gave me a $13,000 check for the mission in Chile. A $13,000 check.
Now, whether somebody actually did that or not, we don't know.
But
so I'm not making any.
But we do know other
there.
people who gave to that GoFundMe and they did not get reimbursed their donations. It just, so that's our first question. Where's the chili money? Was there a $13,000 check? Did you lie about that?
Well, he's not going to answer that question.
Did you cash that check? Did you pocket that check? Did you ever have any intention of going to Chile? I am going to guess no.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that you used this as an idea to set up a GoFundMe or a Give Send Go. And then I think he learned from that one because then with subsequent Give Send Goes for specific people, then they were set up in the person's name. The problem is the property at Mandolin Farms was set up to go to Scott. The money was. So it wasn't.
Are we going to get to that punchline right now, or are we going to save it for the end of the show?
There's no. I don't think that's an end of the show type thing. This is where's the money, and then the spatial terror. So this is the question we're asking.
Okay, all right. So where's the big thing for me for Flemingsburg? Mm-hmm. You want to get to that? We can get to that. Where's the money for Flemingsburg? I guess we're going in backwards order. I thought we would say that for the end, but that's fine. I don't mind doing it right up front, right out the back, because I know you all want to know too. I want to know. I got confirmation that we do now know unequivocally. We don't know how much money was raised. I'm looking at the comment section, and I'm adding up how many bricks I have heard of that people bought. I have in my mind that I have heard directly from at least 17 bricks. I know of 17 people or 17 bricks sold personally myself. So and I don't know of every brick sold.
So I've heard estimates of 50 from somebody who was in.
They were $250. Let's go ahead and get into the bricks, Leah, because you talked to the brick company.
So I called the brick company, and I talked to the representative yesterday morning, and I said, so tell me do you have any record of how many bricks were ordered? And she said, no, we don't know. That's not it. We would have if they had set up with our IT people. So Hannah and Charlie, Scott's people, met with the IT
who are no
people
longer with Scott, and I just found that out today.
What?
Mm-hmm. I didn't get a chance to tell you that. They're not with Scott anymore. He fired them, which he was always threatening to fire them on the phone with me. I can't afford to pay him. I got to fire Hannah and Charlie and Nikki. I got to fire them. I got to fire them. I can't afford to pay him. It's too much money.
Well, maybe Hannah and Charlie will know how many bricks were ordered. So somebody maybe can ask them. Charlie has always been a nice guy, and Hannah has always been wonderful to us. So that we have no ill will to any of them. I would love to talk to Hannah and Charlie if they would like to talk to us. We introduced, Hannah reached out to Scott, and we got to meet Hannah at the first Bards Fest.
We had already been on her show one time. We were on her show first.
She's a hard worker. Yeah. She loves her dad. She loves her family. She's a wonderful young lady.
She's the sweetest. I love her. We recommended her as an assistant to Scott.
Yeah, and in addition, because Scott kept saying, "Oh, all my assistants fall in love with me. All my assistants fall in love with me." Well, there's probably a reason why that wasn't one-sided.
Hannah did not fall in love with Scott, thank God.
And so we said, here's Hannah. She's
not going to fall in love with you. You're old.
You're an old fart. So and more. So I called where was I at before we got to Hannah and Charlie? So Hannah and Charlie would know how many bricks were sold. She says to me, the brick lady, it just went cold. It just went cold. So Scott had talked up to the brick company that they were going to sell, you guys were going to buy 3,000 bricks
at $250 a piece.
And they were shocked by that. And they also didn't think that $250 was a very good price point. That
their normal price was
like $100, $125. And then it breaks down. It's like $18 a brick. They get profit.
Can I just insert right here the miserly Scrooge of Scott here? They are going to get $16 to $18 per brick. So Scott's grand idea to get more money is to say, well, I'm going to price the bricks at $250 so that they get less money.
So I would actually like to advertise for this company because Brick Markers, and maybe you can bring it up, Michelle. These people are great. They are honest. They are honorable people, and they did not deserve what happened from Bards Nation.
Well,
as a whole, because here's the thing, guys,
you have to follow up with
you
this.
did not follow through.
What we mean, we're not blaming you. What we're saying is, now that you know,
yes,
now that you know, anybody that bought a brick.
You were, many of you asked, where's the money? Many of you kept asking, but you didn't have the ability. You didn't know the brick company to call.
You can call the DA in Douglas County if you would like. And that's where this would need to be
Especially
filed.
if any of you
if
bought
you
a
bought
brick.
a brick.
Yeah.
You should.
You should.
You should call the
And
DA.
if you gave to the Give, Send, Go.
In Douglas County.
Okay.
Lee and I can't do that because it didn't happen to us. And then they can open up an investigation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would highly recommend, if anybody is brave enough, but this company did not deserve what happened to them because Scott promised 3,000 bricks.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to be probably a pretty good order for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it
probably a very big order.
So they had meetings. Their IT team
Scroll down,
had
you
meetings.
can see like how the prices would have worked. So you guys can know. So if you sold 100, it would have cost $18 a brick. They recommended $100 price per brick. The total cost would be $1,800. $1,800 would go to the company, and then your profit would be $82,000. So
No,
or $8,200. Sorry, $8,200. So Scott looked at those numbers and said, you know what? That's not enough. That's not enough. We want to double. We don't want to double. We want to double and double and a half. So we want the profit per brick, Mr. Scrooge here, to be much, much more. So let's say
Jesus
on
says
100
that
bricks.
my neighbor bought one. Jesus is my guide. So I need to start making a list.
You know what? We should make a list. If you guys bought a brick, would you email us? Put it in this chat. Michelle's, get a piece of paper.
No, well, somebody can, just email me. Please email me.
Please.
That's going to be a lot easier for me to do. Please just send me an email.
Please, but who's going to do it? Not everybody's gonna do
MassFaith30.
it.
I got all these emails.
MassFaith33. Please email us. We can get a number about how many were sold.
MassFaith33@gmail.com.
Let's pretend they were 100 sold. Let's just pretend. Okay. It could have been 50. It could have been 100. So 16,000 and half of, so 20,000. Let's be generous and say 15,000 in bricks. Let's go under. Let's go under. Okay. 15,000 in bricks. I heard from somebody that said their last, the last screenshot they saw was
Of the Give, Send, Go.
Of the Give, Send, Go was 56,000, but I have a screenshot of 27, and somebody else has a screenshot.
All these people in the chat said I didn't sleep at all either. This is okay. Can I just for 1 second,
okay.
Leah, can we pause this conversation for a second? Because I'm reading these comments from people that didn't sleep. Why didn't you sleep? Why are we all tied up with this one person?
Mm-hmm.
It is incredible what he has done. It is mind-blowing what he has done and how many people and how many lives he has reached. Okay. And not just reached, but ruined and crippled. This is insane. Okay. Now, we did not come here to you guys tonight prepared with numbers, but we're just going to shoot a couple at you. We do know, and we all know this, that Scott got a check for $25,000 for the property in Flemingsburg.
Yeah.
Okay. He told everybody that the money that was secured as a kind of down payment, non-refundable, to Willie was that $25,000. Mm-hmm. But he kept wording it like we're going to gift Willie $25,000. Mm-hmm. It's not a gift if it's a down payment that's not refundable because it's part of a deal in case you fall out. We have direct confirmation from both Willie, who wishes Scott and Bard's Nation well. Willie doesn't have any animosity towards Scott himself or towards Bard's Nation. We have confirmation from them both that it was not $25,000. It was only $20,000. So that's $5,000 alone that he has lied to you guys about.
Technically, but there is a check here to the Flemingsburg County Real Estate for $25,000.
Okay.
So the other $5,000 might have gone to real estate fees and
that makes
to
sense.
lawyer fees.
Okay, that's helpful. That's very helpful. All right, so scratch what I just said there. All right, so $25,000.
But Willie didn't get $25,000. He got 20, and the rest we don't know yet. Our summation is fees and realtor fees and things like that.
That makes sense. But to them both, they adamantly confirmed that. So whatever it was, that's what they got. They
adamantly confirmed that that's what they got personally.
Sure.
Just Willie. It's not they. It's just Willie.
All right. So we have the bricks money, which Leah's saying let's underestimate at $15,000 It's probably more than that, but we'll underestimate that. Let's say 15,000. The last Give Send Go, if anybody has a screenshot of that Give Send Go, that's the last one I have is from February of 2022, no 2023. Obviously, no, February 2024. It's just this past year. So sorry about that. And it's like 20 some odd $1,000. Okay. Somebody says that they have about a $50,000 screenshot. Okay, on the Give Send Go, 56,000.
No, they don't have a screenshot. That's the problem.
Well, no, the memory.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the memory. Okay, the memory that they have.
So this is the screenshot that we do have, and I'm going to bring this up.
Do I have that up?
No, I have to download it here real quick. So of 33 in March.
Okay. Let's just go with that. I don't have to overestimate. These are numbers enough. Let's say 15,000 and 33. All right.
And 25.
We're at 48,000. We know where the 25 went. Okay. Now
We're at 48.
Didn't I say 48?
You said 45.
I'm sorry. We also know that Scott received
multiple
cash and check donations towards the property.
Yeah, we heard from a family that
gave $750. I cannot confirm any of those except for I was around when Scott got a giant chunk of money that was towards Flemingsburg. That happened at the Eclipse event. Someone handed it had to be like $3,000, $2,000 or $3,000. So we know that Scott was getting donations outside of what we could track digitally. Okay, so let's just say that there was $25,000 donated in one lump sum, and let's just easy number $50,000. Okay, that money was raised for Flemingsburg. Now, you guys have all given me very inflated figures. I'm not a part of Bards Nation. I wasn't part of the fundraising. I don't know anything about it. Most of you have said to us, we believe it was about $100,000. I'm not going to go with that figure because I can only go with the facts that I have because we're trying to be factual here on this show. But I will tell you what a lot of people in Bards Nation think, that it was about $100,000 that was raised.
Yeah, if you want to bring up the Google Doc just so they can see, this is a screenshot. And the screenshot, I don't know, this person's phone, it says July 28th, but then it says August 26th. So I don't know 2024.
Is that at the bottom of this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So people want to see 33,000 raised in the Give Send Go.
As of July.
It says August 26th on the person's phone, but no, that's on their computer bringing it up.
Right.
So the screenshot must have been July 28th.
Okay, so we don't know beyond. I don't know when the campaign shut down.
Yeah.
So here, let me screen share here. I'll make sure I get the right window up.
See, there's no
There we go.
date here.
So I hope you guys can see that.
No, the date. Well, I don't know how screenshots work. Is a screenshot of her phone or a screenshot of the computer bringing it up? She's screenshotting the screenshot.
Oops, sorry guys.
She's screenshotting the screenshot. So I don't know what the date on this, but
sorry.
Okay, so at some point we don't know whether that's her computer or whether that's an actual screenshot or whatever.
Regardless, July, August, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care.
But here's the thing. Look at that. 331 givers.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That didn't get their money back.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not 300. Forgive me. I'm 131. 131. 131. Where is the money? Where is the money? Now, we know that he kept saying, this doesn't make sense to anybody, guys, because con artists don't really make sense.
So this person in the chat said, I gave $150 into his hand at Flemingsburg, as seed money towards the purchase.
You know what? I'm just going to put this in here. I know personally somebody gave 700. Didn't you say somebody?
You just put 7,000.
Didn't you know somebody who had handed him a 3,000 at the Eclipse or something?
That's what I just said. Yeah, it was between $2,000 and $3,000. I don't know how much. It was a giant chunk of money. Underestimate. Okay. It's $2,000. I don't care. I don't have to overestimate this. The point is,
how much was that person that said? How much?
150. Heather says I donated $100. I think. Okay. It's just going to keep adding up. I'm sorry, guys. Like, I don't want to be the poo-poo here. All right?
Confirmed cash donations.
Lori says same. I think I gave him $100. Okay, so here's the point.
That's probably more than the Give Send Go. Let me just tell you.
I know it is. I know that people were giving him money for this property. Last year, when I was talking to Scott, he went through a very, very, very hard time financially. That's when he was threatening
He
to
said he
fire
couldn't pay.
Nikki and Hannah. And as an aside, I would just like to point out, I am not speaking for Nikki or Hannah or Charlie.
Yeah.
I know from Scott's end, he often didn't pay them regularly. Like they had no idea when they were going to get paid. They just got paid when he could pay them.
Well, neither did we, because we
and
were
this is their
sending
full-time job.
cases of Founders Bibles to
I don't want to bring that
Corey
up.
Terry, and he owes us $400.
He doesn't in this sense, okay? And I'm going to be fair here. This is the way that I have worked this in my head. When our mom got sick and died.
Okay.
Oh, didn't die. Oh my gosh, dear God. Almost died twice. Which she is raised back from the life. So I don't even mind saying that she died and rose again.
Mm-hmm.
He
was gonna support
He
us.
told us, he said, I'm going to start supporting you guys at $500 a month. We cried. We were like, Scott, you don't have to do that. You know, it was very, very generous. And at that time, he gave us a first donation of $500.
Okay, he paid for the Bibles.
He never followed through with any more after that. And I'm so glad. I was actually glad at the time.
Honestly, truthfully,
I don't ever want to be beholden to anybody.
When we got free from Scott Kesterson, we started to climb out of the hole financially.
So,
never take a gift from a crook.
But Scott bought those mics, got rid of those. The Rodecaster got rid of those. The earbuds got rid of those. So he was always trying to buy us in gifts that he knew were very important to me.
Trying to get rid of the Rodecaster.
Okay. My point is, I was constantly, I don't know how many cases of the Founders Bibles that I had gotten from Flemingsburg that I had to pay Brad for. I had to buy all of those, but he gave them to me at cost. But I had to pay him. I was like $8,000 or $6,000 or something. Forgive me for losing.
When he
not
said
remembering,
it,
but-
I knew we didn't have it.
Right. And so we ended up paying that off. That
was
we
like,
paid all that money to
Lord
Brad.
Jesus, please save
but
me.
I had all the Bibles here. And Scott would ask me to send whole cases at a time to Corey Terry because he's doing an amazing work training guys and hands them a Founders Bible. So he'd say, can you send a case of Founders Bibles to Corey Terry so he could buy them at cost? I'm like, he could have Brad do this, but whatever, it's coming from me. That's fine. So I'd package them up and I'd send them to Corey Terry. And when Scott got around to it, a couple of months later, he would pay me for the Bibles. There's one box of Bibles that he never paid for. I don't care. I count that $500 because I would rather not have had a donation from Scott. So I don't want him to ever, please, dear God, I hope he doesn't watch this because I don't want him to send me that money for those Bibles because I don't want a donation. I don't want nothing. I want nothing from this man. I never want to hear from this man. Like if that money ever comes, it's going in the trash. It'll get burned. I will literally burn dollar bills for the first time in my life. I will not take that money. Okay. I just want you guys to know that there's a lot of unfollow through with this person. I wasn't going to bring that up because I don't even want to tell that story because I don't want it to sound like, oh, us and money. Like I literally could not care less about that. I couldn't
back
care
to
less.
Sammy's Grill. So Scott had tried to come up with some ideas to raise money, and somebody helped with this idea of the bricks. And I think that if you were a legitimate person, it's a good idea because so many people sentimentally, like the guy from Sweden, bought a brick for his grandfather, and somebody brought
put your
bricks
names,
for their
right?
family, and it's going to be this great thing. And you're going to go, John and Stacy bought bricks, and you're just doing it in this memorial, and it's like this thing, and it was, it was this heart thing, and the fact that he didn't even care. The fact that he doesn't care about Mike's grandfather. He doesn't care about your sisters. He doesn't care. It doesn't hurt him because he can't feel feelings, guys. He cries, whatever. Those aren't real feelings. Not like you and I have feelings. That's what you don't
So
understand.
I need to finish this story, but I agree with you.
I was just doing.
No, go ahead. I wasn't done.
I said on the Sammy.
But I wasn't done with what I needed to tell on this story.
Still talking about the Bibles?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm back to the
We're trying to go through the money
conversations that I had with Scott
Okay.
about the money that was donated. I am in this. I am a part of this, and you need to know my side of the story. Here's the really unfortunate part. Because I was under Scott's spell, there's a lot that I literally don't remember. And I mean that genuinely because I think I was in a different mindset. I don't know. I do know this, though. There are parts that I do remember 100%. Scott viewed the money that was donated as money that was donated to the ministry. That's how Scott viewed it. He did not view the money for the donations as money that he could not touch. Now, because I had asked him, Scott, are you using this money? Because he was so hard up for money. He's like, no, I'm not using that money. He spat at me. Like, he was like really angry. And I was like, okay, I'm just asking. Like, he doesn't do anything on credit. He doesn't have any credit cards, as far as I know. It's what he claims all the time. So his credit is the next con. That's what he does. He said, no, I'm not touching that money. Where's the money, Scott? Where's the money? He says that somebody told me that on one episode, Scott offered that if anybody wanted their money back, he would give it to them. And I told him he had to do that. I said, Scott, when he told me he was going to shut down the thing and the deal was going to fall through, I said, you have to give the money back to everybody. And he's like, no, that was money that was donated to the ministry and we're going to roll it forward.
So
I don't have to give it back. But on one episode, according to you guys, which I can't confirm or deny, but I'm just reporting what you guys told me, on one episode, he said, if anybody wants their money back, they can ask. But who's going to do that? Right? Now you need to, because it's a crime. Because he raised the money for one thing and then he pivoted and said, here's what we're going to do. The $25,000 that went to Willie. And we're going to take the rest of the money and the money that was raised for the bricks, and we are going to give it to Jim Conley for Sammy's Grill. First of all, that in and of itself is probably wrong, okay? Because that's not what that money was raised for, right? But I now know unequivocally that Jim Conley never got a dime of that money. They did do Give, Send, Goes because Jim went through a hard time and by all means got the money. And you guys have asked if he got that money. He did get the money for that Give, Send, Go that was raised in his name. But when Scott came to you guys and said, this is what we're going to do with the excess money instead of giving it back to you, that never happened. Now, you may say, oh, he just hasn't gotten around to it yet. Where's the money, Scott?
So we need to explain a couple of things how Give, Send, Go works. It's very hard to give cash donations back, okay? However, what you can do and what you should do is put those donations in a separate account. You go back to the people, say the deal went through, I fell through, I've got all this cash, I know I can't return it, okay? What are you guys okay with? Now, the problem with that is he just told you it was going to be for Sammy's Grill, and he never did it. And he never did it. But you have it in your brain. The problem, and this is we're going to get to how he does this. You have it in your brain it's going to be for Sammy's Grill, even though it's not going to be. Even though that's done. It's over. It's not happening. But you, because of the way Scott talks
with the storytelling,
you have it in your brain and it's so hard to get through. Okay? Now, I just accidentally archived that. How do I get it back out?
Lori says he doesn't respond. I called him out for never even saying thank you for donations. Kala says, I heard that he would give it back on the podcast. But has he? And LambNet says, I donated. It was such a long time ago. I don't even remember how much.
I hit archive instead of download. How do I get back my email that I just sent myself with the screenshots?
I don't know. I can go look for it. I'm the one that's going to need it anyway. Right?
No, I'm putting it in the Google Doc so people can see it. So I want to read to you guys the screenshots of the
description for the Give, Send, Go.
But I need you to find them. So I'm going to put them on the Google Doc.
That you emailed them to me?
Yeah, I emailed and I always hit in its archive. It's not download. It's weird. Okay. We are needing to raise $490,000 by June 30th, 2024. A sowing in for the greater works of kingdom. The facility has over 55 acres, 285 camper spots with water and electricity hookups, a covered 90 by 60 foot music pavilion with seating and capacity for over 400 seats, plus a stage and green room, bathrooms and showers and campers, and a private lake. Do I need to resend it?
No.
I don't know what arcade means.
It's fine.
We are fundraising for the deposit to secure the property and move to the next level fundraising so we can bring the property under contract. The terms of sale have been written to ensure success and accommodate the varied pace of fundraising. This money raised to secure the purchase option will be placed in escrow. All monies will be applied at contract closing after the second round of funding. Once the property purchase option has been secured, the second round of fundraising will begin. Bards Nation is a privately held entity under the common law protection of a private membership association. Oh, donations are not tax deductible. Bards Nation is a privately held entity under the common law protection of a PMA.
Private membership
I
association.
don't think that was ever set up. If you have proof of that, I think this is a bull-faced lie. And I have heard from sources that that was going to happen, but did not happen. The Home for Bards Fest, a Jesus-centered events, a kingdom stronghold. Michelle, I'll just resend it. Here, you read. Oh, no, it's on my phone. A location, don't worry about it. I'll just get it later. Okay. A location to prepare the saints for the work of the ministry, training and building ecclesia and governmental authority, building the church without walls, uniting the tribes of the remnant, training and awakening the fivefold ministries, apostolic, prophetic, healing, deliverance, and raising the dead. Wow, that's a big promise. A national center of revival and repentance. A national center for spiritual healing. A stronghold for Operation Vineyard to rescue. Oh, there's Operation Vineyard there.
And so Paul was right about that, by the way.
Heal and restore God's children. Training center for prayer and spiritual warfare. Strategic coordination center for kingdom. Center to awaken the gifts and talents that God has called into each of us. So,
Sounds great.
Mr. Kesterson, who is no longer a minister.
I do have them now.
Okay. So just add them if you wouldn't mind to that.
Got it.
So we would like to know if, and you guys would like to know, where's the money now?
Lee and I are not pursuing anything legally. We have no legal grounds to do so. But those of you that do, pray about it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so we are going to go back to, and I do want to do the Spatial Terra part of it.
Spatial Terrorist. That's why the title is there, because this is the name of his company that he started. So there in your Google Docs.
Here we go. So we're going to go back to what I had written, and we're gonna finish. If you stick with us to the end, we are going to listen to episode 64, and you're going to see how he used this strategic planning that he's learned in the military to craft a story, like he's always crafting stories to get into your mind. All right.
Christine was trying to correct me again on the Willie thing. How much Willie got? Leah has a screenshot of the check.
I have a screenshot of the check that said to the estate to the
and it says $25,000. But what we were saying is, according to Willie and Bill, it was just 20. Now
Yes.
I think that the
I have a screenshot of a cashier's check, U.S. Bank.
don't show that.
I'm not going to. I'm
Okay.
going to read it. Fleming County Real Estate, 25,000.
Now let me. There could be an explanation for that, and that would be this. And I don't know this. I'm not claiming this at all. The explanation for that could be that there was $25,000 that was secured, but he only had to release $20,000. $25,000 might have gone back to him. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
All we know is that the testimony that we have gotten from both Bill and Willie is that they got 20 grand.
And
whether the 5 went to fees or it went back to Scott,
I will
we don't
have
know.
to follow up.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Let's keep reading. Sorry.
Okay. I don't know if you guys want me to try to do that live. All right. So I'm going to pick up where we left off last night.
We were going last night for a refresher for people. We were going through the list that you guys had sent to us, several of you. What happened to all of these things?
What happened to Danny, his assistant? Some say his girlfriend. The 7 pillars. Evern, the rapper. Scott used to play his music, and then Scott started playing a new age guy who said God was a woman, and Evern called him out in the chat. This is a testimony, guys, from people who don't want to be named. And got booted, and a very nasty email was sent to him. I haven't gotten that email, but I heard it exists. Whatever happened to the Victory Community Gardens? Scott really can't garden. He can't move his body more than 10 feet. I'm just telling you. County by county, the Vineyard, saving sex trafficked children. He fundraised off of that. Where's the money for that? The Podcast Academy, the Sourdough Revolution, the Slipper Revolution, the First Nations. Oh, we're going to do this with the Native Americans. Oh, we're going to do this. The Black Pastors, the 4th of July event that was canceled. It left Mandolin Farms without, anybody, anybody to fill those slots for the 4th of July. And from what we hear, left Bill with some bills, and Scott did not pay them. And he didn't pay for some things at the Fall Bars Fest either. What happened to the Chili fundraiser? She never received a dime. Whatever happened with the DMA, the 321 group, letter of accountability? Whatever happened
231.
with 231?
You need to correct that.
Oh, okay.
It's 231.
Sorry, I don't know these people. You guys are sending these news to me. I have a little dyslexia. Whatever happened to Tenpenny, Naputi, Northup, Meday, Helios Farm in Oregon, and the butchering? They just totally messed those people over and their bad name, give them a bad name. Marjorie and the Farm for the Children,
In the school.
Joe Flynn and others. The Cantrell family and children. We'll hear about that. Jennifer Renee and the Potts. Whatever happened. I heard that poor Jenny Lynn was called out live on the show. Whatever happened to the Revolutionary Revivalists?
You can tune into them every Thursday right here on Resistance Chicks.
Glad Tidings, Yuba City. I heard a story from someone that said she went up and met Pastor Dave, and he was very kind and very jovial. And then when she said, mentioned Scott's name, he basically almost like had some sort of heart issue and his blood drained from his face, and he just quickly left. Didn't want to talk about it.
And she said she didn't see him do that with anybody else. Now,
what happened with the bricks and Sammy's Grill? I wanted to finish that, by the way.
Okay.
When it comes to this fundraising for the bricks, guys, you're all adults. You can think logically. It does not make sense to raise money for bricks to build a patio when you need $490,000 to secure the property. Anybody, guys, I'm not saying that we're dumb. I'm not saying that we're stupid, but he crafts such a story that your logic goes out the window. Oh my gosh, I'm going to give a brick. We're going to have Sammy's Grill. Oh my gosh, we're going to do this. Meanwhile, there's only between $30,000 and $50,000 in the Give, Send, Go to actually secure the property. And guys, you needed $1 million. Why are you raising money for a grill? I'm going to tell you why. Because it was a con.
Mm-hmm. To pull on your heartstrings.
Because there was more emotions to build a grill and a thing.
May I?
Yeah.
So a lot of you are here because you're Bards Nation people. And I'm glad that you're here and you know how much Resistance Chicks has a heart for the Bards Nation people. But just in case there's Resistance Chicks people here who may not know, Jim Conley's son committed suicide while he was doing and working the grill in Flemingsburg in 2023.
While Bill was.
While Bill who?
While Jim.
Who's Bill?
Sorry, I don't know Bill. While Jim was cooking for Bard's Fest, his son committed suicide.
And Jim continued to stay. And it was very emotional. Jim's son's name was Sammy. Mm-hmm. So Scott is
Jim
pulling,
is very good at outdoor barbecues. And
so
cooking
Scott's
on a
pulling
barbecue.
on the heartstrings again for another con. Sammy's Grill, right? I'm going to do this because I care.
And many of you want to know why 2 Give, Send, Goes for Jim.
I believe, this is my assumption, I think that because Scott never gave him any money for Sammy's Grill, that he was all behind trying to raise extra money for him because Jim was going through a hard time. Now, that money wasn't supposed to go for Jim because Jim needed money. The Sammy's Grill was going to be Sammy's Grill. But the point is, this was Scott's way of making up, like just pulling you guys in because he didn't do what he was supposed to do and follow through.
So
and,
logic as adults, we don't do the fun thing, which is build a patio and a grill, until we have actually bought the house.
But I don't know that all of the bricks were going to go just for Sammy's Grill. Because 3,000 bricks at $250 is going to secure the property. Right. So I don't think that these people all thought that they were buying bricks for Sammy's Grill. The bricks were going to go to help like build around Sammy's Grill, like that.
The bricks would go to be set at Sammy's Grill,
right? But the money was going to pay for the property itself.
Okay, but they kept saying the bricks for Sammy's Grill. So the brick money itself. Did people have the notion and the idea that money was not being raised to buy the grill? Because I think that a lot of people thought that money was being raised to buy the grill.
What do you mean buy the? Okay,
buy his grill.
Well, but we know from the brick company,
yeah, that
he was going to buy He thought he could sell 3,000. That's way more than a grill. That's the property money. That's where he thought he was going to get the bulk of his property.
He didn't think that though, and he never thought that. Okay, and nobody thought that. Even the brick people didn't think that, and the brick people didn't think you were going to sell. And partway through, here's the problem. He's still selling the idea of using the bricks for whatever, and you've only sold a handful of them. Nowhere near the property money, and he's still bringing up Sammy's Grill. Okay, Sammy's Grill, Sammy's Grill, Sammy's Grill. You hear it one more time. You guys have told me this. Okay, so going back to the brick people, and I'm sorry that this is not in cohesive order. We're not good at this. I don't know. I feel like I'm not good at this.
No, I think the
problem is we got two more people. Can I finish? I want to finish this thought because I have not done it in an hour, and I keep trying to do it with the brick people.
The problem is there's so much information.
I know.
And a lot keeps coming up and keeps coming up in the chat. So there's a lot to do. There's a lot to get through.
The brick makers, and I was all the way back at Charlie and Hannah. And we got sidetracked.
I'm so sorry. There's a lot to cover.
So Charlie and Hannah were the IT, and they were on the Zoom call with the brick people that I talked about, and they had a Zoom call on web building. And I got this from the brickmaker lady. And she said that normally we help organizations, our IT people help them set up a web page, and you put in your information and you pay. And that goes into a specific account.
A separate account.
And they were shocked that Scott's people were ordered to put it on their website, and the money would go to Scott, and they would simply send the brick people
an Excel sheet.
Okay? They kept reaching out and reaching out and reaching out. And she said she doesn't even have an email from Scott, but she does have his email address. And she said, it is very strange that we were hacked by Proton email. And I only have Scott Kesterson as a Proton email. So it really bothered her and so they actually blocked all Proton emails, proton.me. So they said that their boss said, please keep us informed and we will be watching. Because they want to know what happened to this big giant thing. Here's the thing. Scott goes in like a tornado, like with the dog trainer, like with the dog lady. I can do everything. I'm going to be the best at whatever it is. I am Joshua. I am the best of the best of the best, and it's going to make you awesome. It's going to do you this. I'm going to sell more bricks and a brick maker. I'm telling you what, those Israelites, they thought they made bricks. I'm making bricks. And I'm selling bricks. I'm selling them right and left. And then, from what you guys have told me, he's mad at you guys in the chat
for not giving enough.
For not giving more money. And what you guys have said to me is people are struggling. And they kept saying, well, you guys are telling me, we kept telling Scott, 250 is too much. 250. No, ring the blood from the turnips.
So in the comment over on Instagram, somebody says, I thought that the price was ridiculous for a memorial brick. Like, it's a small thing.
And it's a small brick because he could have said it was $250 for the 8x8s.
Because they were bigger bricks.
Which they recommend at actually $175. But no.
Scott just wanted to
because
get the most
those would be more money.
Yeah.
Like $26.
Right.
No, you don't get the 8x8s. You get the 4x6s.
So
4x6s. You know, here's the thing. I don't care if you're a teenager. You're getting the Happy Meal, son.
Lori says, what an absolute betrayal of trust. Tag, thank you for this. Tag says, Give Send Go is a 501c3 organization out of Boston, Massachusetts. So it is a not-for-profit 501c3, is created by the state and can be investigated by any state legislator. The legislature will likely not know how to open that investigation, but anyone determined can teach their legislature how to do the investigation using Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedures. Thank you for that, Tag. Anybody that is interested in pursuing this, by all means, you should.
So, and then the story with the dog trainer who lost her whole business, and then the dog lady who donated $10,000 with the dog, and he just shoots him dead.
5,000. You keep getting it wrong. It was
$10,000
for each dog.
Oh, I thought it was 5,000 a dog.
It was 200. It was 2,500 for one dog.
Oh,
2,500 for another dog. It's $5,000.
I thought they were $5,000 dogs.
They're $2,500 dogs.
Okay, gotcha.
Still,
thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So, who is Scott Kesterson? Well, he had a LinkedIn with a full bio, but a few days ago he locked that down. I don't know anyone who personally knew him from before his time in Afghanistan as a journalist, and I don't even know anyone who knew him personally from Afghanistan. I don't personally. I know other people did. I don't personally know anybody who can vouch for who he was in Afghanistan. We do know somebody who had an investigation done on him, and the report came back that he was a narcissist, that he
with
violent tendencies,
and he was not looked upon
favorably. And I think to myself, I always think to myself,
groups.
the military guys are violent. if military guys are saying that he's violent,
What kind of violence is that?
shoot your dog violent, I guess. I don't know. All we have to go on, and I'm not saying that the dog lady is saying that he shot the dog. So I'm just repeating. It's all weird, okay? Everything's weird. All we have to go on is his word and what has been put on the internet, okay? From one of Scott's viewers, she sent me this to look up pre-Bard Scott. How is a backpack journalist, a podcaster, an audio engineer, a documentary filmmaker who also works with special operations units in the area of information and narrative warfare, founded a cultural intelligence consulting company that has provided support for defense and private companies, advised senior leaders on terrorism and information warfare, helped develop next-generation programs for narrative warfare for emerging threats, and led research and development efforts for Five Eyes and R&D teams. Okay, that's you? How are you, how do you become this scamming? What are we missing here? So if you've ever listened to any of Scott's podcasts, you will know he comes across as a sort of Paul Harvey meets QAnon. He weaves in the founding fathers, God, and storytelling to draw listeners in. Was he born a storyteller, or did he learn how to tell stories? Was he born a con man, or did he stumble into self-made opportunities? Most of Scott's current life story starts with his in bed with the Canadian military as a journalist. To find out how he became a MAGA turned anti-Trump podcaster, I guess we can start there. To tell his story, we met a famous, to hear him tell his story. I don't know how I read this. Okay. He met a famous videographer who taught him the ropes and then asked to go be part of the action in the Middle East. He says he was in the National Guard out of high school. He also says he tried to get into the Special Forces, but he says he used a Ventolin one time, an inhaler, and then got denied. Not sure if that's true, but he found a local news station who sponsored his trip to Afghanistan. He never tells you that. It was KGW, and they sponsored his first trip there. He never mentions the videographer. His name is David Leeson. So, Michelle, I need you to start bringing up some of the, or do you have, I don't know if you have my tabs up.
I do.
Let's see here. That doesn't exist. Where's my first link here?
He mentioned David Leeson to me quite a lot. So, Leah, did you write that, or did somebody else write that?
I wrote it.
So you don't know that he never mentions David Leeson on the show. I think he does. Well, then I think he has no problem mentioning David Leeson on the show.
Okay, so this is Hotbox live from Afghanistan with Scott Kesterson. This is just a screenshot right there. So that's it. That KGW8. I don't know if he mentions that or not. I'm happy to be corrected on anything. Okay, I want to be corrected. But that I haven't heard that. Maybe you guys heard that he was sponsored, but he was sponsored. And they got regular reports back. His claim to fame is a documentary called Bards of War, which he conveniently leaves out that while he directed it, others were involved with the project. Scott was sponsored in Afghanistan by KGW, a Portland, Oregon TV station. According to KGW website, 3 videos were produced and aired at kgw.com for Operation Mountain Thrust in July of 2006. These videos captured Canadian soldiers in heavy fighting in Panjua and some other places. This is from the Dallas Observer. Over on his website, local photographer Hal Samples just posted the trailer for a forthcoming documentary, and it is actually titled At War. Directed and shot entirely by a former soldier turned photojournalist, Scott Kesterson, who spent a year embedded with troops in Afghanistan and now lives in Dallas, at least while editing the movie. The film was produced by David Leeson, who in 2004 won a Pulitzer Prize for breaking news for these photos. What I mean is he never mentions him when he says, "This is my movie. This is my movie." And he in 2019 he released Bards of War, and everywhere he went, and anything online, even Groke is like, this was just done by Scott. When I put in Groke, Scott Kesterson, and David Leeson, they couldn't find anything. There was nothing. Okay, I had to dig and dig and dig. So if he's mentioned him, he doesn't mention him. It's not a lot of mentioning, and he doesn't mention him in the 2019 release because it's not there.
And every time he ever talked to me about him, it was always disfavorably that he was just this really terrible person that had affairs on his wife.
Who, in 2004, David Leeson won a Pulitzer Prize for breaking news for these photos taken by the Dallas Morning News. Here's the thing. He supposedly sat there and edited this whole movie with David Leeson. Does he tell you that? I don't know. Does he say, I didn't do this by myself? I didn't do this movie by myself. Okay, this is not just my movie. Leeson, then there's this guy named Hal. Okay, I don't know if I copied this right. So let me go over here. Michelle, let's bring up this article so people can read it. Over on his website, okay, local photographer Hal Samples just posted the trailer for a forthcoming documentary titled At War, directed and shot entirely by a former soldier turned journalist, Scott Kesterson, who spent a year embedded with the troops in Afghanistan and now lives in Dallas. Okay, at least while editing. Leeson was my mentor, Hal puts it, and asked Samples for some advice on how to score the documentary about the forgotten war in Afghanistan. Hal's response, how about some Black Angels and Sarah Jafe? The Black Angels from Austin score the trailer currently online. Jafe's music will be featured in the second version. Samples says there will be other local artists added to the soundtrack in coming days. Kesterson says there will be a rough cut of the movie ready by fall and a version ready for theaters come January. That never happened. The release of the movie Bards of War didn't really happen until 2019. Okay, so this is also really hard to follow. Oregon Live. Let's see if I've got the Oregon Live. I hope I have these in order. I don't know if I have this one in order. I don't think I do, so I'm just going to open them up. Oregon Live. Portland filmmaker explores true lessons of war. And there's a trailer there, but it's off of YouTube, so you can't watch it. All the At War website is down. The Bards of War, I don't think, is up. And it says Portland filmmaker Scott Kesterson. And then I think the documentary he is now editing in Dallas with Pulitzer Prize winning combat photographer David Leeson. So he edited it there in Dallas together with Leeson. And there were several.
He has since passed away, by the way.
In 2022, he has since passed away. I do have a picture of him. And then he mentions David Leeson in this interview about his documentary. I don't know if I could stomach it.
I do have that one up, I think.
Yeah.
Scott Kesterson shoots raw and gritty stuff. Canadian soldiers at war, ambushes, raids, confrontations. This is everyday life for soldiers and the Afghan people.
Take care, man.
Scott is a former National Guardsman from Oregon who'd always dreamed of being a war photographer. Now, with no formal training and no major media outlet behind him, he managed to get himself embedded in Afghanistan, and he set himself up as a citizen journalist, risking his life on the front lines with his camera in hand. Now, Scott built a following on the web, blogging from the battlefield for sites like the Huffington Post and posting clips on sites like YouTube, sometimes scoring more than 1 million hits for clips like this.
Can't believe that guy's not dead.
Kesterson's work has come together in an upcoming documentary called At War.
Hello. How do you feel?
So I'm gonna
People
go to
shooting each other, stabbing each other, little kids with crazy injuries.
What does that mean?
Sit back and go, what are you doing? And one of the things that just kept hitting on me is what it was the love that I've had all through my life. Even one of the guys who worked at me, he goes, you don't build stuff to build it, you build it to photograph it. And that's kind of the truth. I mean, so I started just making the moves to go back to figure a way to get into photography. Was on MySpace, found a site called Photo Muse. It was run by this guy. I had no idea who he was other than his name was David Leeson. Blew my mind. This guy had done everything that I dreamed of doing. Combat photographer, he'd been in multiple wars, won the Pulitzer in 2003 for the invasion of Iraq II. His images were what I would say it was the thing of bringing emotions out of war in the way that we need to feel war.
His images, they're raw.
Yes.
There's a rawness to them that a lot of times some of the war photography, even over the past, comes back very cinematic and glorious. Yes. And I find that kind of misrepresents what's actually happening.
Well, I think what David's images, what drew me so much is they were personal. They brought you into the moments in these most sensitive and emotional ways to make the human connection to the drama of war. Even in the most horrid moments, you could find that human connection to where we could relate to it all.
Well, how did they let you in to hang out with the soldiers then? Like, how do you get to that point?
Well, it was just kind of a weird process because, I mean, David and I linked it literally on MySpace. We're emailing back and forth over a process of a couple days. He says, what do you want to do? And I said, look, what I want to do is what you've done, but I'm too old. He goes, no, you're not. I'll mentor if you want to do this. And I jumped. I mean, I literally it was like 15 seconds later, I'm like, yes. 24 hours later, I'm like, closing my business down, going to do this thing. And I was like, if I have to work at Starbucks, I'll work at Starbucks. This is a dream.
Can I ask you a question? Is that out of character for you? Are you the kind of guy that can jump that quickly?
Yes,
Yeah?
I am. I am that type of person that if I can feel it in my gut, I'll go for it. Because there's nothing, you can't live life by sitting waiting behind. You know, we have one run here, and that one run is to take advantage of those things that we truly believe in. And that was one of my callings. I'm just one of those things that I found is really, everything in my life made sense the minute I did that. And it's like you've been waiting your whole life. It doesn't matter when.
Can I just do 1 second? Because I have not, Leah's done all the research on a lot of this stuff. I've done a lot of the phone calls and the talking, the back end stories, but, and Leah has too. I have not seen this clip. I've seen it pop up. I'm going to be honest. The past 8 months have been, I don't ever want to hear this person's voice as long as I live, ever again. That's why I've not watched that clip. I'm waiting I knew I was going to have to do it on the show, so I'm not watching them. I want to point out something very interesting. You know, I guess maybe my voice has changed over the years as I've gotten older and my accent has changed, perhaps. Maybe people would watch videos of me from the past and go, wow, you don't sound like yourself. I feel like I sound like myself. But I would like to point out something. What year is this from here?
2016
years ago. Okay.
I think.
Scott doesn't sound like that. The voice that Scott gives on air, and you know who else's voice has changed over the years? Alex Jones. So Alex's voice has gotten deeper and more. The accent here is very willy-nilly. It's not intentional. The words are not slowly pronounced.
Yeah.
He's just talking on the whim, saying things, willy-nilly, not worrying about how he says it. Just kind of has a little bit of
just like the rest
Oregon
of us?
accent, like sounds just like the rest of us. But somewhere along the lines, Scott developed that mesmerizing voice that, like, when he gets behind the mic, that he actually does have even on the phone. That is just not here in this conversation, which I find very interesting and leads me to believe what I'm getting at is crafted. It's crafted for the craft because it's so good and it's so convincing.
It just is the fact you do it.
All right, stick around. We come back, we're going to talk more with Scott. I want to find out what it's like, if there's a difference between the American soldiers and the Canadian soldiers.
This is beyond real.
Okay.
And I looked at the sequence, which we titled the death sequence, and it was showing the ceremonies of death from 3 different countries, Americans, Canadians, and Afghans. And I had not seen this edited section. And it was like a year after I'd been gone or been back, and it hit me. I mean, just like a whole inside of me opened up, and I'm in tears, and I'm feeling all of that. I mean, that one summer in Kandahar, there was 45, 48 ramp ceremonies for soldiers. You know, this isn't, it's almost like you get into a pattern with it, but the real is, war has a human cost, and that human cost is we're losing people, and they're coming home in caskets, and that's...
Well, your opinion of the war changed, right, when you went over there. How did it change? Is it, from your perspective, being with them, is it a winnable war? Like, how do you look at that?
I don't think Afghanistan, in the context of traditional wars, it's a winnable war. I think that when we look at it from a standpoint of what it started out to be, it was a counterinsurgency war. They were using a lot of special operations forces. The idea was to go after Al-Qaeda, stand up an internal army that could fight, and then we would leave. That was the model. And that's where I think it needs to be. This massive surge we're doing right now, I have a lot of questions. I'm going to document it, but with my own personal line of opinion, will it succeed? I don't know. I think that's throwing a lot of the wrong way.
When you go there as a citizen journalist, how are you perceived by the other media or by the soldiers?
The soldiers and I get on fantastic. I mean, they've seen my work. As the more that I've done this, the more they've read. It was like a year after I'd been gone. Dallas, where David and I were editing.
There we go. That's what I wanted to say.
I looked at the sequence, which we titled the death sequence, and it was
Dallas. No, it was right before that. In Dallas, when David and I were editing, I just wanted to point that out. Like in everything else, he stops talking about David because he doesn't like him. He gets mad at him. He doesn't want to mention him, and I just feel like it's just rude. Okay, but that's what he does. It's an MO. If he doesn't like you, he will badmouth you and wipe you from his memory. He'll wipe you from the story. That's what he's trying to do. He's taking down the Bard's social, the Barb's website, because he wants to wipe us like we didn't exist, like we weren't his friends for 3 years. He wants to wipe out David Leeson like David Leeson didn't do all this training and teach him all these things. And he wasn't, you know, it's just like he wants to just rewrite the story, rewrite the narrative.
That what you're trying to get at is that, because Liz said he did mention David not that long ago. Because I do think that he's mentioned him a lot. I just don't know that he's given him what you're getting at is the credit that David deserves for being a part of Bards of War. And the documentary itself.
At least
he
not
often
when he
refers to David from his training for being a photographer
because that
and
makes him
videographer.
legitimate because
Right.
David Leeson was legit.
And he won a Pulitzer.
Right. Because he
Someone
was
wanted to
real.
ask,
But like when he talks about Bards of War, it's just his movie. It's just and what
I was never told by Scott
that he sat down there and like was
that
there.
David had anything to do with
used
the
the
editing.
picture of him and David in Dallas. That's what they were doing, editing this movie. So Scott did not do this movie by himself, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And he presents it as this is his movie. Did anybody else think to themselves, okay, yeah, David Leeson taught him, but he didn't sit down and produce it with him and produced and edited it with him. And so I just feel like that's just another lie. And my guess is that he did another big talk. And David Leeson was like, I'm done with you, Scott. So then Scott has to make up a story about why this Pulitzer Prize awesome photographer either left him or he has to rewrite how their friendship went. So it didn't, because I don't know if David even wanted to be part of it anymore. Like, we don't know how that went down. We can't ask him, but I just know that he speaks very badly about people. And I know now that when he speaks badly about people, then it's usually Scott's fault.
So, like I said, I don't know. I know that on air.
And if you want to scroll down, I have a picture of him.
I showed that already.
Okay.
On air, I'm sure he speaks very highly of David because he did speak very highly of David's professional ability with me. But his personal life, Scott spoke the worst of.
He says, I got
David.
rid of him because he was having all these affairs and whatever. No one really knows what happened between Scott and Leeson. Scott has his own story, and Leeson died in 2022, and there's no way to contact him. It seems Scott later renamed his documentary Bards of War instead of At War and released it afresh or newly edited in 2019. Interviews about the 2019 release are readily available, which in none of those the article released does it say Scott directed, David produced and edited. They don't say that, but the beginning ones did. That doesn't add up. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Did he tell you, you say he mentioned his name, did he say he produced and edited my film? I don't know. What happened with all of that? After the in-bed with the Canadians, he went back to Afghanistan. From what he says, he was a one-man operation with an interpreter. Not sure what he was really doing at that time, but reports online show that he may have joined up with COIN. Reports online show that he did, which is the Counterinsurgency Academy. If so, that is where he picked up all of his cultural relations lingo and birthed the idea for his next venture, Spatial TERRA. It's hard to follow this part of the story. He wrote several papers and was part of others on how to shape cultural narratives to get locals to corroborate with the United States government. And then with his new business model, we don't know where his business partner is. You guys maybe can look him up. Maybe he has some answers. He says he wanted to use those skills to help large companies bridge the gap between primitive cultures and organizations like big oil or fracking. I have heard that on his show, he tries to frame this as somehow being helpful to Native people. We may never know because there really isn't any record that Spatial TERRA landed any projects, like what projects that he actually did. Like, this is what I did. If so, if he did, it's not easily available online. The timeline seems short as well. He supposedly started his company in 2012, and the crime of stealing from his cancer friend happened sometime near the end of 2023, 2024. I do have this snippet. You guys can bring it up. Supposedly, Spatial TERRA here, it says...
we showed this yesterday, but we'll show it
Spatial
again.
TERRA is an advanced data analytics firm providing cutting-edge client support, research, and market intelligence to enhance innovation and project implementation in a rapidly evolving business environment. Now, that is a word salad of nothing. What the heck do you mean? That means nothing. But supposedly, he was granted $454,000 contract. Now, is this his company? Michelle, will you go over here? I think the first one is the one on the right, which is Spatial TERRA LLC. Supposedly the articles of organization were June 24th, 2013.
Hang on, I'm having some connection issues on that one. Let me refresh the page 1 second.
Oh, you might have to bring that one up with the CAPTCHA. No, not that one. That one's not it.
Okay, well, do we need this one?
No, you can
whatever
shut
it
that
is,
down.
it's
Shut
not
it down.
working.
Just go to the
Okay.
left. There you go. You have to do the I'm a human thing here.
I'm a human.
So he dissolved it a year later. Not sure why he did that. And then he redid another one. It's very strange. I'm not exactly sure how this went. But you can kind of see it. As Michelle is bringing it up to the Kasha. This
Apparently
one was
I'm
hard
failing at it.
with the fewest holes.
Unbelievable.
That is so funny.
Okay. They're really
They're really hard
sticking it
here.
to you.
Okay. There we go. All right. So you can just see the dates
It's
there.
bigger.
And Oregon, and then one to the left, please.
I might have to do caption on this one too.
You already did that yesterday.
No, but I had to bring them all back up again, remember? Oh. It's like shut down all the tabs. I had to turn my computer off.
Okay.
Sorry,
All
guys.
right. So 2015, he application for authority, amended annual report. So he did some annual reports in 2016, 2017. Changed the address. So he has his address as 2620 Martha Street, Philadelphia, PA. Now, I would like for you, Michelle, to try to do me a favor after you do this, because this article here from the Philadelphia Inquisitor, do I have this one? I cannot,
You're screen sharing.
am I?
Yep.
Oh, shoot.
That's fine. It's just we were screen sharing so they could see
Sorry,
that.
you can close it down.
Okay.
I'm trying to bring up this article because that's important, and I have not been able to sign in for the to the Philadelphia Inquisitor. Let's see, Philadelphia, and I'm going to ask you to do this while I keep reading.
Okay.
Okay, so you should have this one up.
Inquirer.
I don't know why you don't have this. So just put
Fine.
Scott Kesterson.
I can get it. I can pull it. Just keep reading.
Philadelphia.
Let me get it.
I need you to sign in and get $1 for 6 months. I keep trying to do it. Yesterday I couldn't get in.
Okay.
It wouldn't let me sign in. You have to do an email.
I'm on it.
Okay. So we can read that. So Scott Kesterson, I read this article once and I had already paid my money and have to repay it or something. So I can read this article again for you guys. I should have just taken some screenshots. Supposedly he wanted to set up this giant company in Philadelphia, and they were all so excited to have him in Philadelphia. And he said that it was going to be this big giant company, and you do have to give him your credit card for it.
I want it. Dude, I think I can
And he
handle
said
it.
that, well, I guess I couldn't do it. It wouldn't, I literally spent an hour trying to set up a new
Okay.
account to read this article
All
for
right.
5 seconds.
I think I got it, dude.
I was like, geez, you guys really don't want us to read your articles, do you, Philadelphia Inquirer? Because you're making it very difficult. But anyways, I wanted to share with you guys that he was all excited. Again, he's the city of Philadelphia was so excited to have this like $1 million company coming in. I'm just waiting on it. I'm just waiting. I'm just kind of looking over to see if it's
right.
how long till I can actually read the article.
Okay. 1 second.
This is where the state of media of newspapers have gone.
All right.
Back to the inquiry. Oh, now you have to.
Here we go. Now I will go back on the page. If you had any
You might have to
comments up,
sign
you can
in.
read them.
If I had any comments up, I could read them. Okay, let's see here. All right, my husband served in the act on the same time. Let's see, I'm trying to get this. That soft voice is the reason why I could never listen for more than 10 minutes and always fast forwarded. After a month, I quit trying to listen. C.L. Klein, I believe he said that he got some kind of lung infection while in Afghanistan, and he regularly smokes a pipe, which could have a problem on his voice. Kitty to Karen says, I'm going to continue to remind everyone that despite all this, many people have been brought to Jesus in their lives, and we've gained a few friends. God can use anything and everything. That's absolutely true. Scott is doing his show per usual. No mention of your shows. I pray Scott doesn't do anything stupid. Stay safe.
Thanks, Lamlet.
Calitude says, I
ready
agree.
whenever you're
He
ready.
sounds totally different now. Now I want you guys to see this.
All right.
So I want you to read this article. It's just another Scott
Right.
Kesterson thing. This is from April 3rd, 2016.
Philly should be throwing a parade for Scott Kesterson, or at least buying him a snort of his favorite bourbon, Mitchers. It's not every day that a small business moves across the country to Philadelphia. Even more rare is when the owner of that business has no personal ties here.
Oh, really?
I never thought I'd be a Northeast guy, said the native Southern Oregon. Research is what led Kesterson 51 to relocate his Spatial TERRA, a 4-year-old company specializing in a complex blend of market research, risk mitigation analysis and consulting from Portland, a city often associated with progressiveness, to Philadelphia, a city that consistently does not score well in national rankings of best places for small businesses. The ranking things don't tell you the right story, Kesterson said. These are what matter to him. Historically underutilized business, the hub zones, a U.S. Small Business Administration designation that helps small businesses gain preferential access to federal procurement opportunities. Easy train and highway access to other metropolitan areas, proximity to a major airport, cost of living, leasing costs, nightlife, and a variety of activities from restaurants to sporting events, an opportunity to, quote, be a part of the uptick in growth, not arrive at the zenith. Kesterson also applied those parameters to Wilmington, Dallas, Alexandria, Arlington, and McLean, Virginia, Brooklyn, Summit, New Jersey, and Boston. Collectively, Philadelphia comes out and screams as the best place on the East Coast. He said during a recent interview, it's like the hidden gem. So last month, Kesterson moved Spatial TERRA into a 1,700 square foot offices in a recently renovated warehouse in Martha Street in Fishtown, next door to the Red Brick Craft Distillery. That will come in handy to help stock the after-hours bar he plans to include somewhere near the kitchenette for what he largely envisions will be a staff of 20 and 30-somethings. I'm not going to build a company of greatness by relying on hiring people my age, he said, sipping a latte made with almond milk, soy boy, and an extra shot of espresso at one of Fishtown's wow factor venues. The palatial La Colombe Coffee House, Bakery, and Rum Distillery on Frankfurt Avenue. Spatial TERRA, there's the link, but the website's not there, has 2 employees besides Kesterson working in Maryland and New Jersey and expects to exceed...
Who were those people? Anybody know who they were?
$1 million in revenue this year. The company has been profitable since its first year. 4 profitable years, and somehow
in the midst of that, he's stealing money from a cancer patient in 2014.
And didn't somebody say he filed bankruptcy that year?
And it's and we will replay that. We need to replay that. Stop there. We need to stop these lies in their tracks. We're going over. We're playing these 2 again. No, not these 2. We're playing these 2. Again, because this is what you have to he lies, and lies to the city of Philadelphia, who almost opened up the red carpet for him.
This man is charged with pocketing thousands of dollars he collected for a cancer patient's treatment, pled guilty. Scott Kesterson accepted a plea agreement today in Denver District Court. Now, Melissa Garcia is live at the courthouse downtown. Now, Melissa, he avoids prison, but he has to pay back a lot of money.
Dominic, in accepting the plea deal here today, Kesterson received a 2-year deferred sentence. It required him to hand over a cashier's check to the patient's husband, paying back every dime he stole and then some. For Jorge De La Torre and his kids, losing wife and mother Kelly De La Torre to cancer back in 2013 was hard enough.
It's still very tough to think about.
Then to be cheated out of more than $12,000 in donations collected for her lymphoma treatment by who they thought was a friend
is still mind-boggling to me.
52-year-old Scott Kesterson, who had originally hired Kelly as his attorney to help him start up his nonprofit, decided to start a fund for Kelly after her cancer diagnosis. He was supposed to give the money raised to her family in the event of her death, which sadly became a reality. But when Jorge tried to get it a couple months later, Kesterson disappeared.
To just disappear, then I felt, well, this has gone from making a mistake, which we all do, to just being criminal.
Prosecutors say he pocketed the money and used it for his own business and personal expenses.
I felt so ashamed because people who loved me took time to give to them, and so I felt like I had betrayed their trust. You know, I didn't do it, but I felt horrible.
Thursday in Denver District Court, Kesterson pleaded guilty to felony theft and was ordered to pay her family the $12,300 he stole plus interest. And as part of that plea deal, Kesterson also had to pay back to the court the nearly $4,000 cost to get him extradited to Colorado from Montana, where authorities had originally tracked him down and arrested him. We did reach out to Kesterson today multiple times, but those requests have gone unanswered.
This is not the article where they mentioned that.
No, it's the next, but I wanted to play both of them, and you.
Okay,
I think you closed one out.
I think I have it over here.
My wife died of cancer. That's a horrible tragedy. But does someone take advantage of that?
A mother's life taken by cancer. Her family now feels taken by this man who they thought they could trust.
Months turned into years. then turned into him disappearing.
All new at 6, how investigators say a thief profited off a local family's grief and scammed dozens of people.
You know, these people went out of their way in my wife's name.
Denver 7 starts right now.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Teresa Marchetta.
And I'm Shannon Ogden. And Denver 7's Jennifer Kovaleski spoke to that family whose grief is compounded by disbelief. Jen?
Shannon and Teresa, this is one of those stories you just can't believe. U.S. Marshals arrested Scott Kesterson in Montana 4 years after Kelly De La Torre lost her battle with cancer. The DA's office says he spent the $12,000 in donations on himself.
Katy Perry, the Hulk, and then the Good Witch.
The only thing Jorge De La Torre has left are these memories to keep his wife's legacy alive for their 2 young children.
I never want them to forget that she affected a lot of lives.
A well-known lawyer and advocate, Kelly De La Torre dedicated her life to helping others.
Always wanted the best for people, especially if they were having a tough time.
Her husband says friend and business partner Scott Kesterson took advantage of that.
This guy, we trusted him.
Right after doctors diagnosed Kelly with lymphoma in 2013, Jorge says Kesterson offered to set up a foundation to pay for her medical costs and then her kids' education when she lost her battle with cancer 4 months later.
It's disgusting, so it just crushes me.
Jorge says he ran off with everything. Court records show Kesterson used the donations for credit card payments, ATM withdrawals, Costco purchases, and Federal Express payments. Then on July 31st, 2014, a check cleared for more than $1,500 with the word rent in the memo line.
That's the lowest of the low, in my opinion.
A cancer victim's tragedy to raise funds and then use that money for your own purposes.
The Denver DA says nearly 80 people donated over $12,000, and that's what Jorge takes personally.
It's very humiliating. To me, still, I mean, it still kills me because, you know, these people went out of their way in my wife's name.
Just a heartbreaking story. We did some digging and found that Kesterson filed for bankruptcy a year before he started that foundation. The DA says he will be extradited from Montana. He was there on a bike trip. Kesterson faces felony theft and computer crime charges.
So he actually was, he pled guilty to those. For those of you that missed that last night, what Leah wanted to highlight there was at the very, very end where it says that Scott Kesterson filed for bankruptcy nearly a year before that. But according to the Philadelphia Inquirer that we were just reading, Scott's business was very lucrative for 4 years.
So it's a lie.
So which one is the lie? Is the bankruptcy the lie? Did he hide money somewhere? Or is the article, is he lying to the Philadelphia Inquirer? I'm going to go with he's probably lying to the Philadelphia Inquirer, and that the Spatial Terra was not what Scott was saying that it was. So,
keep reading. Just read the whole article.
All right. Because Spatial Terra is self-funded with no debt, Kesterson is not aiming for wild growth and to be acquired, but rather for careful growth, possibly to 10 local employees in the next 18 months and 10 million revenue in 5 years.
Wow.
The idea is to be a legacy company, he said, for the foreseeable future. Philadelphia will be its hub and home. So what was wrong with Portland? Kesterson said the startup market is not huge there, largely because there isn't a lot of venture capital. Plus, the cost of living is high and the size of the downtown too small to attract enough of the demographic Kesterson wants. As my colleague Jane Von Bergen detailed last Sunday in a piece on Fishtown small business boom, much of the growth is from companies of just a few employees rather than a few dozen. It is fueled by rents lower than those in nearby hotspot Northern Liberties and certainly those in Center City, which newcomer Kesterson called the main city during our meeting. He also called I-95 the freeway. But he's a quick study. No kidding. Making a living analyzing cultures, both businesses and social. He's seen societies
and
from all levels, said Peter Arsenault, someone who has both used Spatial Terra's services and is now doing consulting for the company from Windsor, Connecticut. He's able to bring some of those cultural challenges that each face and stimulate thought processes. So mastering the Philly art of ordering a cheesesteak wit or without, or knowing that the Great River area to which Kesterson referred to is called Boathouse Row should not be a problem for the 1988 graduate of Oregon State University. He earned a bachelor's degree in social history based on revolution and change. After that, Kesterson moved to Florida, where he worked for McDonald's and Costco and to Minnesota, where he was a national director of marketing at Central Boiler, which manufactures and distributes outdoor wood furnaces. He returned to Oregon in 1999 to restructure the family remodeling business to focus on specialty.
The family remodeling business?
It was his dad's business.
Oh, okay.
He did nothing. I mean, he just helped his dad. He didn't have a job, so he worked for his dad.
He had to restructure it?
I don't think he actually did that, but he did. He did work for his dad. It sounds much better to say that than to say I went home and worked for my dad. To focus on specialty construction for outdoor living spaces, which that part is true. Scott did do some really cool work for timber framing, but he
sent one picture of one house, and we have no idea where we have one picture.
He hired people to do it.
So
Mexicans, I think he told me that. In the mid-2000s, he won an Emmy for documentary work in Afghanistan, to which he later returned for consulting work. Back in Oregon, he started Spatial TERRA in 2012. He has been frequenting the East Coast ever since to visit clients in the defense industry, which brings us to his move to Fishtown, where Kesterson also found a place to live. On the morning of March 25th, he sent an email saying his belongings had arrived. I am full on now a resident of Philadelphia. Exciting.
So when Scott was arrested in 2017, and I'm not sure when if the audio had said he had filed for bankruptcy a year before the crime or a year before he had been arrested, but either or, it's still in the window of this profitable company that's getting ready to do $1 million that year.
Yeah.
What happened to that company?
Good question.
Well, it's very interesting because he wasn't arrested yet. He just all of a sudden went on the road with his buddy for Kilroy Rising, the Kilroy Rising pack.
Yeah.
Because if you see the Breitbart article, that Philadelphia article is April 3rd, 2016. The Breitbart article, 100 plus members of Special Forces community deliver a letter of endorsement to Trump. And that was September of 2016. When then somehow he's, and then later on in 2017, he's bicycling around the country trying to do his American brand thing. So what happened between being Philadelphia's next big thing and who were his two employees at the time and him?
How does he go from being Philly's next big thing to bicycle?
Well, he did the bicycle is 2017. How does he go from Philly's next best thing to the Kilroy Rising Pact?
Yeah,
going around getting all the names for the scroll down, you can see the date on that. So it says more than 100 members of the Special Forces community signed a letter of endorsement for Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump that was delivered by hand to Trump. It was the Kilroy Rising Political Action Committee. Scott Kesterson delivered the letter at exactly 8-something. This letter is significant because these aren't people who usually weigh in on politics. In the letter, Kilroy Rising PAC describes itself as a special operations veteran political action group. And so he did this thing and he created this political action group. But I have on my phone, and I don't have them in this article, a couple letters from the government saying, hey, Mr. Kilroy Rising, you have not filed your receipts with us. So he's doing, what happened to Mr. Cocktail Hour? What happened to I want the millennial guy?
Well,
who is that guy?
But what I love about this article is it says that Philly should be throwing a parade for this man.
Because he said in a few years he'll be bringing in 10 million. This is
in 5 years.
In 5 years. 5 years. 5.
Yeah.
10 million. So again, with the big promises, he promised the city of Philly to be this great big company. I'm going to bring in $1 million this year. This is the same thing. Hey guys, we're going to do everything he does is lie, and these big lies. You know what? I got to give it to you, buddy. You don't
do anything small.
No, but he does lie small, so I almost took it back. I have to take it back.
I mean, like all of his big cons are like they're.
But I think he does little ones and big ones.
No, he totally
too.
does little ones. Yeah.
Okay, so you scroll down, you can see that we did the $450,000. He did somehow get that in 2014, but that doesn't mean he was on track to get $1 million in 2016. There's nothing there from the DoD. I don't know where he gets it from. So, and here's the link to the request of Scott to join Coin. I'm going to read it here. Below is a request from Scott Kesterson to help the Counterinsurgency Academy in Afghanistan. The Counterinsurgency Academy is located in Kabul, Afghanistan, at the base of the ruins of Kabul. Whatever. Okay. I know. I was corrected it today. It's like nuclear. I know it bothers people. Just follow me in the reading of it. Okay. Lord have mercy. Does it matter? Does it really matter?
Well, there's the Kabul.
Is Kabul.
Like cobblestone.
Some people can't pronounce things.
Okay.
Kabul. Whatever. Afghanistan is at the base of the ruins of the Queen's Castle. The purpose of the academy is to teach and expand the doctrine of population-centric concepts for operations in Afghanistan and beyond. The contributions of the academy is making to General McChrystal's strategy cannot be understated, nor can the challenge of implementing an expanded doctrine of population-centric operations. These are big words, and we'll get into what they mean. In an attempt to support the operations of the academy, as well as many soldiers that attend and instruct here, I have developed a wish list, this is Scott, on Amazon.com of books in hopes of creating an honorary counterinsurgency learning library made up entirely of donations from our communities back home. The intent is to further expand the awareness of culture, methods, and operations that promote the end goal of national unity, governance, and security for the people of Afghanistan. You can find the list there. And so he was supposedly applying for this. I think I have this twice. Sorry. It seems that Scott really got into the idea of using his storytelling to shape the will and ideas of the people, and was heavily involved with Coin. From Grok on X, many of the links Grok uses are not accessible, so I just have to read. Kesterson was actively involved in Coin, the counterinsurgency efforts in Afghanistan from 2008 to 2011, serving as a cultural advisor and filmmaker for SOF units, producing Coin training videos and supporting the Counterinsurgency Academy in
Kabul.
His work focuses on narrative warfare, culture intelligence, and population-centric strategies. And then he spent 3.5 years in Afghanistan as a documentarian. And so I just wanted to put this in there on his, he was part of this Coin.
But the Coin, it was designed for this to train people in asymmetrical, what I call psychological warfare.
Right. In episode 64, he describes writing an article about getting into the minds of the Afghan culture to sway them, called 3 Wickets and a Bulldozer. I have not been able to find that. It doesn't exist online anymore. It was Small Wars Journal, but here is the snippet. And Michelle, we can open up the Small Wars Journal here. Is it this one? 3 Wickets and a Bulldozer. It's over here. It's a little. This is what he thinks is this great article that he wrote, I guess, with James C. Larson. The strategic and operational level proposal discusses some of the important dynamics at play at the eastern and southern Afghanistan, observed from the authors from 2001 to 2009. It identifies key positive catalysts that have been largely overlooked, underemphasized by the coalition. I'm going to get down here. To success demands a network-centric strategy that creates integrated and expanded social networks through linked centers of commerce. The coalition needs a unified and interdependent strategy with an end game. The strategy must be simple and consistent with Afghan culture and thinking. Furthermore, the strategy should shift from mirror imaging Western social and cultural paradigms of the 21st century and chart progress in terms of starting points and relevant progress with the context of Afghan culture. To this end, success is about exploiting that which goes too often unobserved with audacity and creativity to attack and erode the enemy's strength and minimize ancient tribal structures.
Achieving an endgame is ultimately not found in the application of kinetic warfare, but rather in the folds of daily life.
So go into cultures and minimize their view of things, use
their culture and
against,
religious backgrounds
against them.
Yeah,
basically.
To manipulate their minds.
Yeah.
And to get them to do what you want them to do. So if I can sum up Spatial Terra in my own understanding, it is that Scott learned how to do counterinsurgency and asymmetrical warfare through Coin, and then and did the work, right, for the U.S. government, was awarded a grant. Now, whether some say he claims he was messed over by the government and didn't get the money. I don't know what happened to that money, whatever, but it's there. But Scott had this genius idea. I can do this for profit myself.
Yeah.
I can essentially hire myself out for companies that want to get stuff from these tribes, and I can utilize my skills as a manipulator.
Get that to a minute, yeah. So I wanted to know what 3 wickets and a bulldozer would mean. Groke said the title could be a metaphorical or anecdotal piece about coin operations, with wickets referring to small critical elements, local leaders, intelligence sources, and bulldozers symbolizing heavy-handed military tactics. 3 wickets, your local leaders, your intelligence sources, and a bulldozer. So you want to get you want to do the local people and then come in strong. I guess that's what it is. So that's his 3 wickets of the bulldozer. Scott was a regular blogger for the Huffington Post, and the Huffington Post site says Scott Kesterson is founder and CEO of Spatial TERRA, a firm focused on strategies for proactive risk mitigation, market entry, and strategic positioning. All of these things are just word salads. He has worked in Asia, Europe, and Central Asia, plus over 3.5 years in Afghanistan. We don't know if that's true. There's no proof of him being in Asia. Well, unless Asia is considered the Middle East Asia.
It is
Europe,
probably,
and there really isn't any. There's no pictures. There's nothing to confirm this. Just his word. Okay, I'm just saying that there's nothing to this. Nothing to confirm. So here's the Small Wars Journal, and then somehow Scott got this idea of using media sources to undermine, or should I say, redirect primitive cultures. This is the article titled "Transmedia and Emerging Threats." Michelle, you can show them. Oh, I don't think I actually have the article up, but just go ahead and read the snippet there.
In yellow? To affect an individual's core values and constructs of trust, greater emphasis needs to be placed on phase 0 operations and the implementation of a transmedia capability centered on influence and outreach programmatics. By employing visual communication programming at the village level that embraces local customs, oral traditions, and native narrative archetypes. A phase 0 transmedia capability provides the means to influence the individual towards actions more in line with our strategic needs.
This sounds an awful lot like what his Bards of War podcast eventually became. The primitive culture were MAGA, especially QAnoners, and the village he wanted to influence with media and storytelling was the village of Macedonia. He studied us. He learned how trusting and forgiving and gullible we were. He learned who our heroes were, like General Flynn and Trump and the Founding Fathers, and read stories about them to gain our trust. And then he ran a con on anyone who would fall for his fake Christian patriotic load of horse manure. So here is this Rocky Mountain Energy blog in which describes his company. And it doesn't sound like the Scott we know. A recent report from the Canadian Energy Research Institute entitled Global LGN, Now, Never, or Later, predicted that Africa could be considered a dark horse in gas production with the potential to increase production dramatically over the long term. The report explains that while African producers have also had political disturbances, the International Energy Agency expects Egypt and Algeria to increase development. So what this is about is who can we exploit for energy? Looks like we should go maybe to Africa, but we need to be able to get into these places, okay? The golden age of gas, the strongest centers being the Middle East, Russia, the Caspian. While these centers of growth have yet to be defined, one thing is certain: the golden age of gas represents opportunities for global resource development, taking advantage of people. These environments, however, can be particularly challenging to companies when it comes to risk assessment and mitigation. That's where Spatial TERRA, Scott's company, comes in. And we had the opportunity to talk to Scott Kesterson and Pete Gillette. Michelle, just go ahead and bring up the video we're going to show here, part 1, so you can see who Pete Gillette is. It looks like I have part 2 up, but there should be part 1 and 2.
I have part 1 right here.
Okay, just show him, just so that people can have a visual. Just leave that up so they can see. Anybody know who Pete is? Has he ever talked about Pete? Pete was his business partner in starting this whole deal. So anybody know what happened to Pete? Like, where's Pete? Okay. So where's Pete? Anybody want to find Pete for us? Let me see here. Let me see. Going back to the article so you guys can see who Pete is. And we'll play some of this in a second. So Pete Gillette, co-founders of Spatial TERRA Consulting Group. He never talks about Pete did anybody know that Pete co-founded it? And anybody? LLC and their business model on ICO's radio. We're going to play that in a second. According to Kesterson, organizations make decisions based on traditional corporate competitive intelligence. To mitigate risk and maximize profits, however, traditional competitive intelligence, whatever that's supposed to mean, is not enough. To mitigate risk or getting to know your community that you need to go in on, corporations must pay attention to a community's social dynamics. That's where we are at, the Bards Fests. Guys, I think, like, if he's CIA and you don't hear from me in a day or two, that's why. Lord have mercy on my soul. Okay? I don't even know. Okay? I think he was either sent by the Satan or the government to get into Macedonia, because that's what he does. Gillette goes on to explain that in the globalized economic, and I don't really want to give him that much credit that he could be working for CIA, but I don't know. Maybe they.
Do you know how many people have told us that? So-and-so thinks that he's the CIA. I don't want to give him that much credit.
I don't either, really, because the CIA is picking a really bad guy who's doing a lot of content. I don't think they'd be open to that much risk. Do you?
Yeah.
I think they say, hey, Scott, could you stop trying to steal so much money from people? Because this is going to end badly. Or maybe that's why he does it, because he knows he's covered. He's got his assets covered, and everything. So, social and political spheres, all problems are local. Hyper network communications have outpaced even the most sophisticated government controls and corporate talking points. Because here's the thing, his idea of transmedia using visual and audio is not going to be affecting Mr. Bedouin tribe in Afghanistan. Because they're online all the time, Mr. Sheep Herder. Okay. I don't think it was working very well over that. That's why I think he moved that whole dynamic to MAGA. In nearly every global flashpoint crisis in recent years, be it commercial or governmental, the core connection could be traced to social dynamics, impacts to individual and collective health, welfare, tradition, security, and justice. The Macedonians, guys, we all have a collective kind of thought process. The factors that have been dismissed as soft science were, in fact, the consistently and immediately identifiable drivers in events as diverse as the uprisings in Libya and stuff like that. Failure to take into account consequences at the local level. What if we were trying to introduce AI? What if we're trying to do these different things? We need to get on the ground. But what is it that Scott would be using for the narrative? I don't know. I haven't gotten that far in my brain. Maybe you guys want to come up with some sort of theory. The gap highlights the unexplored understanding of the social space. This amorphous gray space poses the most complex risks to corporate ventures. That's what I keep hearing. The Macedonians and our social connectiveness presents the greatest risk to the deep state. So you have to have somebody that you trust.
Mm-hmm.
Without a grasp of the narrative and a sound exploration of the social sphere, guys, you keep saying, what is the one thing people say about BARTs?
It's a social network.
It's a community. No,
Yeah.
it's a
Well, that's what I
community.
meant.
Yeah,
it's a place. It's
yeah,
a
but they
home.
don't see it as like a computer. You guys don't see it. You guys
I didn't mean social. I'm sorry. I meant social as in your town social network.
Okay,
It's-
that
whatever.
nobody says it. Nobody says it. The only thing you guys say, I don't like Scott, I don't like Scott, but the people. That's it. You don't need to like him. You don't need to love him. He needs you to need each other. He needs you to need each other.
And he
That's
needs
his
to be
goal.
the only place for you guys to be able to access each other, which is why he was so upset that you guys branched off and did the Vineyard Group and wanted to
then
do
you're
the
losing
Gods
control.
Fest, because then he's losing
He's losing-
control over you guys.
Every place in the world, Macedonia, has a distinct local culture with traditions and values. There are common fears and desires that compel people toward or away potential outcomes. If you can control the people's fears and their desires, you can maneuver them. Okay? What does Scott do? He's constantly playing on your fears. I was listening. A friend of mine was talking to me. He goes, I just tried to listen to him again. It's all fear, 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 anger, 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 anger. What are you going to do? I just listened to him too. The Coffee for Jesus. Well, if you're not planting now, it's too late. It's too late. And he's like yelling at everybody. He's like, oh my gosh, everything's going to, and actually we kind of see that, but not in that direction. Collectively, these become the motivations that define the community and form the local narrative. More than language, translation, or historic ethnography narrative, what is Scott known for? Storytelling, narrative. Narrative sets the conditions for an organization seeking entrance into a community. Narrative sets the conditions. I really wish that needs to be highlighted. Michelle, can you take that and just highlight that and put that just in the blog somewhere underneath this link, if you wouldn't mind? No. So bring up the blog and then highlight it if you wouldn't mind. Because I feel like that's like because I feel like that's what he is doing. That's the most important thing. I will
You mean take a screenshot of this? Is that what you're
well,
saying?
no, I just kind of want you to highlight it and put it in quotes. Like this is one of the things.
Oh, you mean just copy it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like this.
Got it.
Spatial narrative determines whether innovative products and services gain acceptance. Spatial Terra identifies the core motivations for the local narrative, shapes the business environment to the client's benefit by bridging the narrative gaps that impede effective operations. What this is saying is Spatial Terra, Scott Kesterson, was saying, I'm going to go to oil and gas companies. I'm going to tell stories about your company, and I'm going to use the Canadian Native people. I'm going to use their, and maybe that's why he got into the First Nations. I don't know. I want to use their stories, and I'll get you in. I'll get you in. I know how to manipulate people. I know people. That's what that means. I know, I can hear the pushback. Right now, I can hear it in the back of your brain. No, that can't be real. Maybe Michelle can read it. Spatial Terra identifies the core motivations for the local narrative storytelling, shapes the business environment to the client, the oil, the gas company. He's talking oil and gas. This is an oil and gas article, by the way. This is big oil. This is big gas. These are big businesses, okay? How do I get local cultures who may not want somebody drilling there, who may not want to have the pollution there, who may not want these big corporations there? How do I tell a story to them? How do I use their weaknesses against them? I will do it for you. I will go in, big gas man. I will go in, big oil man. I will go in there and I will manipulate them for you. And I'll use storytelling to do it because I'm good at that. Scott's big dream was not to be a combat photographer. He doesn't take pictures anymore. That's not it. Scott's big dream is to tell the biggest story he can and make the most money telling stories because he's lazy. Okay? And bridge the gap that impede effective operations. He is the guy going into local communities so the big corporation can come in with the hard hat and the clipboard and get you off your land. Consider the hydraulic fracturing debate, and then they're actually going to interview Scott giddily on how Scott could go in, and he says his brother helped to get people to do fracking. He's very excited about this, very giddy. Spatial Terra has helped shape some of the most hostile, austere environments on the planet. They believe in solutions. I don't have any proof of this, and neither did the person writing this article. He sold them a bill of goods. Because this one was the very first interview, and the company had just been created. The articles and corporations weren't even until 2013. This article was written even before the LLC had been created. They believe in solutions, while not necessarily easy, are a very simple sum of component parts. They have explored the gray spaces and bridged the narrative gaps that determine the success or failure of technical innovation and strategic operations. Objectives. So, Michelle, let's
But I like
bring
this last sentence.
Okay.
That outcome depends on how one tells the story.
Supposedly, Pete Gillette is a founding partner of the LLC. He's a 16-year veteran of the military and government service, experienced as an Army paratrooper, foreign service officer for the Department of State, and special advisor for U.S. operations in Afghanistan. Pete has worked throughout the Middle East, same thing, and he supposedly lives in Washington, D.C., but I can't find him. So here we go. We are going to go to the first part 1, Driving Force Radio, and it's going to need to be 1.5 time. So
And what timestamp?
let's start like at 1 minute, and we'll get into their introductions. Like go to the beginning. Now, surprise.
This is Kelly De La Torre.
This is Kelly.
She's the cancer
This
victim.
is the cancer victim. This is the woman that he stole the money from his family. And I want you to watch her interactions with Scott. She falls in love with him.
Okay, let's.
No, in love with him as a person.
I get you.
He falls in love with hearing him speak. Watch it.
Right.
Good morning and welcome to Driving Force Radio, where we seek to discover what drives today's leaders. On today's show, my co-host is Kelly De La Torre, my friend from Rapid Tech Transit, based here in Denver, Colorado. How are you today, Kelly?
Great, Jan.
Kelly, today we have a great show going on.
This is a really exciting show.
I want to be clear. I'm not saying that she fell in love and had an affair with Scott. What I'm saying is not everybody has to go dirty to affair. She falls in love with his talking. She became friends with him from this interview.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I fell in love with Scott Kesterson as a person, as a brother.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Okay, that's what I meant.
Okay, great.
The challenges of getting an innovation to market.
Right.
And we talk about there are certain market barriers, there are certain regulatory barriers, and how to find those and how to overcome those. We're approaching that from an entirely different angle today.
Absolutely, and this will be a fun show. We have two fantastic guests. Our first guest is Scott Kesterson, the CEO of Spatial TERRA Consulting Group. He's based out of Portland, Oregon. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And then we have Pete Gillette, a founding partner at Spatial TERRA Consulting, and he's from Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Thank you.
So, Scott, tell us a little bit first about Spatial TERRA. What is it, and what's the premise?
Well, Spatial TERRA, I mean, I guess the first thing to start with real quickly is who we are. In a sense, we're four partners that made up this company. And all of us have had experience working in conflict zones. So that's kind of the first thing we bring together. And so there's, obviously you have a lot of trust to go with that, but also you have a really interesting perspective on a lot of the challenges that we face. We've all been around a lot of innovation, a lot of tech innovation coming into emerging markets. And so we've looked at through a lens of a lot of implementation through Department of Defense, Department of State, and obviously some private sector issues. But what we are really where our niche is now, and we've really zeroed in on, is that bridging space between tech innovation and that social space and implementation and the effect that tech has. And this is a pretty significant gap when we start to look at how we're looking at a technology coming into a space, especially in emerging markets, and what that impact is.
Using technology, am I unmuted? Using technology to, and this was in 2012, so it was a little bit early, to influence people, basically.
Mm-hmm. That is so. It's just very striking to me, this whole how you guys take a look at this social space. Can you and to me it's not exactly intuitive how you guys go about it. So can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by opening up this social space?
Sure. I mean, I think the first thing we have to kind of frame this as is we're in a very different world right now, right? I mean, we look at the fact that, and the term I like to use, and as I referenced at the API conference when I spoke down there, was, we're one Twitter feed away from a global incident. So really, individually, there's a tremendous amount of power to the individual, and we're driven a lot more by emotional responses to things globally than we see ideological. So the ability to have a flash problem come up very quickly changes the environments in which we move, and we have to be sensitive to things at a whole new level. So let's take, for example, a study we recently did for a client. And we'll keep some generalities on this just for the sake of the client confidentiality. But we looked at a new energy technology, kind of a biotype technology going into an area in Africa. And
a biotechnology.
And so this looks like a very good concept. I mean, we're talking about bringing power to a local region, and it has a great feel-good concept because
a biotechnology going into Africa. Scott, why don't you mention that to people? What biotechnology were you helping get into Africa?
It's green, it's renewable. And it's very different than, say, the extraction type relationships that conventional oil and gas provide. But what was very interesting as we worked this model, and I'll walk you through this, is how we found that this technology was probably one of the most destabilizing inputs into the region that one could possibly do. And one of the ironies of traditional oil and gas is, even though it's extractive, and even though there's a lot of pressure put on that model from, I will say, also a lot of emotional pressure put on that model because there's a concept of exploitation. There is a symbiotic relationship that occurs that keeps the wealth appropriate to the country that it's in and the country it's going to. The thing we have to keep in mind is that in emerging cultures where you don't have developed economies, you don't have outlets and ways to move.
I don't understand why he always thought he could use media in emerging cultures, which he's talking about third world countries that don't really have access to.
Well, that's what he's saying. He's trying to jump the gun on it, like
cash and to channel the wealth that we typically do in our culture, things we take for granted. So if I suddenly become wealthy, I have ways of investing that money and ways of moving that money into purchases, of moving that money around. But in an emerging culture, those channels get narrowed. You don't have the traditional outlets. So let's go back to this alternate fuels technology. Put it into a small village area. It's going to produce some high tech, by relation to the country, some well-trained jobs. say about 350 jobs or so, and suddenly we start to create a wealthy class within the country. Now that we have some new spin-out problems, there's no outlet for that wealthy class to go. But what there is in the area for investment and opportunities are things like drug trafficking, human trafficking, weapons purchase and illicit weapons trafficking, support of insurgent movements that are pressuring on the border. And then you have other complicated social issues, which is in this region there's already pressure on the social and economic environment for cross-border illegal immigration. So now, because it's the one new hub for jobs, that has the potential to accelerate. So when you start to look at this input of this technology, which is very local, and keeping in mind again that alternative technologies base their success on selling the outcome of energy locally. So we have to look at this model completely differently now, and we have to take into account the social impact of what that means. Pete, anything?
You know, another part of that study was there's a tremendous environmental impact as well. So part of that green energy that was supposed to be a really good product and was being sold that way, and for all intents there were secondary and tertiary consequences, not just to the environment, but the very population they were seeking to help.
Well, and it seems like, and after speaking with you guys a little bit, you know, you guys have a strong history with military. You've been in all over the globe, and so you understand this from a cultural perspective as well as the business side of it. And oftentimes I think you see these businesses going in to try to do good, not realizing the instability. And I think that's what you're trying to solve the problem in. Is that correct?
I think that's well said. I think that there's a missing piece in these equations when we start to talk about putting technology into culture. I think there was a great quote put in relation to Afghanistan that's relevant here, which is that we weren't just introducing technology, we were creating an evolutionary shift in technology. That there was a gap, that they were just, so the example that I like to give to this is, it was a time up in Aruzagan when I was watching a guy with wares coming to market, pulling his camel, talking on a satellite phone. So here, this is just a great juxtaposition of technology. I will tell you there's no connection to understanding how that technology works. All he knows is if he presses a button and dials, that someone on the other end answers. It might as well be a can and a string in between. Right. But it works. So there's an acceptance of technology, but there's not the cultural understanding or ability within the cultures to work with that change and that evolution. As a Western cultures and advanced cultures, we've moved through those transitions. So technology at many levels has changed us, and we've become accustomed to what that means. And we're still struggling with it, right? So it hasn't gotten over. And we have to look at just the impact of what technology does to us, and then you magnify that by high measures of what that will do in rural environments. And effectively then that piece of instability, it becomes a very real issue when you start talking about introducing new technologies of any kind in these emerging cultures.
Well, and I would think too, it also changes the way the social norms happen. I mean, many times in these undeveloped countries, you know, males are the dominant leaders in these communities, and now all of a sudden you're allowing children and women and different classes to be part of this conversation. Are you seeing that as well?
I would agree.
I think that goes back to what Scott was saying, that there's kind of a natural evolution of that technology, and there's a natural process, not necessarily democratic, but more egalitarian process that may typically come out of technology. The companies we've worked with, the organizations we've worked with are very smart technically, and they have tremendous intellectual capital there, and they have very specific aims, but the problem is in bridging that gap, and they're not really assessing that vast gray space in between, and that's where we come in.
And going back to what you said before about the environmental impacts, can you explain a little bit more about that people aren't looking out for the other impacts of introducing, say, a different type of alternative fuel?
Well, biomass, for example, it's a great one. I mean, it's a great renewable process, and to use what we say, it briefs very well. But let's take an agriculture-based economy. So there's a limited amount of biomass. Now, there is a point when you can consume the excess of biomass, but as demand for electricity increases, which is going to be the natural progression of things as you modernize, as you introduce tech into the region, right? So now we go from the one light bulb, and then we go to the cell phone, and then I want the computer, and then I want the additional light bulb in the house. Demand goes up, so the demand for biomass increases. Now what are you doing? You're drawing down the biomass supply that has been used in these areas of agriculture and other areas. Right. So now you're creating shortage, which is all in the framework of doing good and doing renewable. Right. I think the biggest thing that comes out here is that the idea of green energy has fantastic application, but we have to be very careful how we apply it, and we also have to admit that there's limits. And in understanding those limits, then we can better solve the problems. And really what we seek to do is, as we identify those limits, it's not to crush. And I think that's the one pushback. We've had some pushback from some of our studies, and people like, you're trying to destroy my great idea. And it's like, no, we're not. But you need to be very realistic about what the limitation of your product is. And when by understanding that, it's a better way to implement it. It's a better way to be able to present it to your investor class, to understand what you're really capable of delivering. There's nothing worse than over-promising and under-delivering, right?
Right.
We're very careful too with...
We could have just used that. There's nothing worse than over-promising and under-delivering. Scott. Amazing. Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah.
In advising the careful selection of metrics. A lot of clients love the metrics of 90% agrarian society, 6% illiteracy, 10% electrical grid in this specific country. And those sound great for a green energy project or even a massive oil and gas investment. However, like Scott said, if you're talking about an agrarian society where it's 90% of your cultural traditions are based on that economy and you begin to undermine it almost immediately with a significant technical intervention, what are the consequences of that beyond deforestation or beyond just massive wealth?
So here
What
they're
happens
working
to
with,
the cultural
okay, you can
engagement
pause
as
that
well?
there. We're actually going to do a part two. They're working with these big giant oil and gas companies. I'm going to go to the next part here, and we're going to start in around minute 6 here.
Understanding who you really are, and it starts with the organization. If they can't describe themselves in that way that Scott described, then typically what we're seeing is a top-down organization that has very entrenched ideas, and they want to fit this onto that and make it just that way, and then they're never really seeing the local solution.
So if I may, just real quick on this, because we talk a lot about the social space, and it's a foreign environment for a lot of industry.
Right.
So, and I because we've been doing a lot of work around oil and gas, I just want to throw this out. And it's not, again, this is not a criticism, but it's an acceptance of there's a new space to work in. When you don't understand something, you can often fear something. And if you fear something, the best way to deal with it is to ignore it. The issue is, though, as I believe I said earlier, we're one Twitter feed away, literally, from a global incident. And when you are a global company working in global environments, you can no longer ignore the power of those sorts of things. So you're going to have to embrace new ways of doing business, because if you continue down conventional ways of doing business, it's going to be painful, it's going to be costly, and you're not going to be competitive. And that's the big piece. So when you start to look at, for example, social media, it's interesting to note that there's not a lot of investment going on in that social space. I mean, how many oil companies do we know that are putting money into Hollywood? And my question is, why not? This is a vehicle to communicate a story. Now, this is a very indirect approach. The classic answer is, it doesn't have to do with PR, and it doesn't have to do with marketing. PR is problem set driven, and marketing is product driven. But what we're talking about is neither. What we're talking about is influence and messaging, and we're also talking about presenting your case of the story. So when I hear, as I hear too often, how atrocious.
So he's saying that Hollywood isn't doing enough to influence, not doing enough. And he's saying it's not about really right or wrong. It's about who has the narrative. So I'm going to rewind that just a little bit, because that was, I think, like kind of the most.
It was the clip we chose for the start of the show.
Yeah.
PR is problem set driven, and marketing is product
PR
driven.
is problem set, marketing is
neither.
product.
What we're talking about is influence and
we're
messaging.
Talking about
and
influence,
we're also talking about presenting your case of the story.
messaging,
So when
and storytelling.
I hear too often how atrocious Hollywood is in portraying the message, my answer is simple. Well, how much money have you put into the problem?
How much money?
Okay? It's a money-driven issue. So if you decide to hire somebody to produce a script to tell a story, it's fiction, like everything else is fiction, but it's an investment into messaging. And this is the part of you have to start accepting that there's a different way of doing business out here, and messaging is part of it. And that has to go into your global strategies. And it's not just, like I said, just coming up with, oh, this is a great thing we want to tell. It has to be looked at in the sense of the social context and the audiences that you're trying to receive.
We got to get you guys to
feel I'm just going to say it. Let's take on the issue of fracking.
Okay.
It's generally perceived as a bad word in a lot of spaces, especially in this Rocky Mountain region. So how would you apply your conceptual model to that issue?
I think this is a great one, and we're starting to open this discussion. So fracking to me is really pretty much a tragedy where we're at right now. And I'm going to put a lot of the onus on those doing the fracking. And I'm doing this because there's been an assumption that by providing technical solutions to a public that they will get it. The answer is they won't. Okay? We're not engineers. And when you speak engineer speak, I can sit through engineer speak, and I can tell you I can get lost any day of the week. And when I get lost, I'm not within the problem.
Yep.
Fracking has, like all things, we have issues people are concerned about, especially when we start to deal with extraction of something within your backyard, and we start to talk about water processing, and we start to talk about all these issues that get people spun up on fracking. What people need to understand is how to understand that in the relation to their emotional response to the problem. We haven't seen enough effort put in to trying to get to that space. And the most important thing is how to change the conversation.
Yeah.
Right now, we've got emotionally charged.
We want to get to people's emotions and emotionally get them okay with what we're doing.
He doesn't say, let's fix the fracking problem. Let's make them okay with it.
Change their emotions.
Ideological driven one side, which is environmentalists and also locals. If you're a farmer, for example, and here's a really good example. You take farmer, and you're on a water restricted area, somewhere near the Colorado River, downstream, right? And suddenly there's you say, well, we're going to put fracking in. Okay, what's that going to be? Well, we're going to take X metric tons of water out of your space. All I know is what you just told me is my water costs are going to go up. Now, have you translated that to me in terms of how many gallons it's going to be, how you're going to collect that water, when you're going to collect that water. If you're going to collect it on the rainy season, for example, and it has a zero net effect on me, and you're going to be recycling that water, using it over and over, my argument's mute. But I haven't translated in terms of how it directly affects my pocketbook. So there's not enough of that discussion going on. So in the application of this model, really what we've looked at is, how can we start looking at fracking differently? And fracking is an issue that's important. I mean, this is something, if we can start to really produce here well and find that relationship, not only does it drive jobs, it also changes the United States relationship globally to be a net exporter. And when you change that, now just think about the rippling effects of that. Now you challenge OPEC, you start to take its new alliances like with Venezuela and Brazil, and you peel them off. You start to degrade OPEC's influence, and you start to achieve what we've wanted as a culture, which is energy independence. That whole message, I would argue that has a linkage in a conversation that has not been presented. It's very local about, we have the right answer, you have the wrong answer, and we've got two sides that just clash. Yeah. So in looking at fracking, it's not easy. And I'm not going to try to sit here and say that we can walk in and wave the Spatial TERRA banner and everybody rallies around and says, hold hands and sing Kumbaya, because that's not going to happen. Right. We're dealing now with rift, and we're dealing with trenched-in conflict, and we're dealing with reified positions. So that's a challenging space. That gets into what we call conflict resolution or conflict mitigation. So that's going to take some time, but it takes localized effect and localized focus, training sides, engaging in both sides, getting the conversation to change, and getting people to come to the table.
He sounds
Scott, you're
so
talking
good and
about
convincing,
fracking
but then he never
and those
falls
kinds of things.
through.
But is there really a model that you've seen that's similar to this, and where there's conflict, from one side and conflict from the other, and nobody seems to be talking the same language, where you've actually seen it come together and work?
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is one of the great things. Oregon has one of the great models for this that dealt with the Applegate Watershed Council. And though I wasn't personally involved, my brother was centerpiece to the success. So it's a fantastic example of what can be done. So here's the example. We're dealing with a logging area down into a sensitive.
So,
okay.
No, you have no idea where I'm going.
No, I don't.
He just said, she said, have you seen an example how this works? Meaning your company, have you done something? Oh yeah, I saw my brother do it. No, she's asking you a question. Has your company, have you actually seen this happen? They're trying to help, but you haven't done anything yet. But my brother did. Let me tell you a story.
It's an environmental area, and here's the players. Okay,
so
you've got loggers that are ready to do clear cutting.
So when con artists cannot answer a question directly the way they know they needed to answer because it makes them look bad, and they can't answer the question because they haven't seen it, they tell stories.
Okay, this is very personal to Oregon, right? Because we're a very tree-driven or resource-driven, and where you have natural gas one place, we have trees, right? Yeah. So we have the extraction of the resource, the jobs that related to that, and that's business. You have the environmentalist flash up that occurs right there, and it's hostile environmentalism to include things like spiking trees, so when loggers cut through, their chainsaws blow up, and I mean it's vicious, right? And then you've got the farmers and the ranchers who have been told by the state that there's certain restrictions on how they can clear cut manage their land, that they've even had to pay out of their own pocket to rebuild stream sections, which ended up being wrong. Okay, so that was going to be a new cost for them. You have the Fishermen's Association, which is all about preserving the native flow of fish. And then you have the local community that's like, hey, we've got to vote too. What about us? Which is a whole mix of it. Was the persistent and constant engagement in finding and changing the conversation and getting through those ideological layers and emotional layers to get people to find the common thread of the narrative. And that's where it sits. And this is the great model that we really look at, because if it can be done in something like that, honestly, it can be done anywhere. It just takes.
So, but wait, it's not about whether the narrative is right. It's about whoever is paying them the most money, they're going to shape that narrative.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's time, it takes some patience, and it takes a different way of doing business. And I have to stress that. You can't just throw the engineer out there and say, hey, everything's good. Yeah. Or you can't just throw the state representative out there going, I voted for it, everything's good. Now imagine adding to the mix, which we've seen all over, you have the state representative that takes a side directly or indirectly by passing new measures of regulation. You start to add a whole new layer of a problem. So it's all about conversation. And the most key piece, and I know I keep saying this, but it's what we band on, which is the narrative. What is it? What are people really saying?
The big key is the storytelling.
What is the piece that they're hearing, and how are they seeing the problem?
Yeah.
And when we start to peel that away, it's pretty amazing, because we can often get to some very simple truths. And when
so he studies people. What is it that you have a problem with? I need to find how to manipulate you. I'm going to study you. I'm going to study your organization. I'm going to study your culture. Because he's talking about a company that's going to be used to help fracking companies, gas companies, oil companies go to people who don't want them there. So they have to find where your emotions are at, where your thoughts are at. They have to find where your weaknesses are, and then craft a story so that you will accept their client in.
Once we start to bridge those differences, we start to have a conversation that starts to be intelligible. We can tone down the emotions, and it has to have obviously restrictions on it.
Manipulate your emotions.
And there has to be some time because you have to let people process and move through this, especially when you get into Rift.
Well, and I want to talk about that. I would imagine that this isn't just 2 or 3 meetings that this happens in. That this takes some time, and obviously you've got to shift the way people are perceiving things and get everybody going again.
You have to shift the way people are seeing things.
Well, I think timing is everything. I think that this is a problem, unfortunately indicative to this modern generation. And when I say this, for the last 30, 40 years, we have become so accustomed to the image that everything is fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
And it's everything from the way we get our food.
Plays the long
for
game.
people to hear. They go, "Oh, I've got Facebook." Yes, but you don't have human interaction. So when you look at the dynamics of digital interaction versus human interaction, it's a whole new level of experience. Things our parents took for granted are now almost new to learn, and that's the consequence of what you say, for example. So it is definitely a enduring process, one that takes time.
You know, what's the best choice for me? What's the best choice for my family? What's the best choice for my personal values? So that's what it sounds like to me, that you're asking people to become more engaged, not just based on fear, but you're asking them to really look at these problems and consider the other person's perspective. And that is truly how we're going to move forward and solve a lot of these problems. And it's interesting how it ties into a lot of our other conversations that we have on this show.
Well, I would agree with this. So this is a little example, a tiny one, but I think it shows how we look at problems. So there's been this massive push to get more fuel-efficient vehicles, and we've done very well as a country. Our consumption has fallen. But now it comes out about 2 weeks ago that the highway fund has no money. This is interesting. Now, why don't they have any money? Of course, the conversation starts as, oh, it's been expenditures. No, it's not. It's because the way the gas tax is structured, it's based on consumption of fuel. We aren't consuming the fuel, but
decisions that we make that really are the motivations that describe our narrative. And that's true of the domestic environment, different regions, different places we're operating, but also overseas. There are commonalities of human beings, of things they fear that they're moving away from, or desire that they're
commonalities on things that humans they fear that they're moving away from.
Towards.
Or the desire that they're moving things towards. That is the same thing that McChrystal taught them. What is the fear of somebody that they're moving away from, and what is their desire that they're moving towards? That's a theme that they have decided to learn, and Scott took this. It didn't necessarily play out with Spatial Terra, and now he's using it with us and all these different things. What do people fear? I'm going to play on their fears, and what do they desire?
Do we need to do too much more of this?
Just a couple more minutes.
Okay.
Layers and layers of narrative, as Scott described, and defensive and conversations that have been taking place over generations. So what we do is peel all that back, but with an eye on those technical solutions, those technical issues like the gas tax that have secondary and tertiary consequences.
We maintain a foothold into working with.
I'll get to the end here.
Coming out with it, we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
But that's
understand is really.
Is that? I think does she go over this again one more time? I think she's talking about. Yeah. She gives an end.
Yeah. And to learn more about Spatial Terra, go to spatialterra.com. Well, this last hour with Scott and Pete, as well as Kelly, has been so enlightening. And this conversation that I am sure there are a lot of people that don't really understand is really this high-level introduction of how technology solutions are really going to bridge this bigger social conversation that's going on globally, especially as we begin to open up new markets and develop new technologies in these developing markets, whether it be Africa, the Middle East, or even Latin America. And the interesting part of this that Pete and Scott really understand is from the Afghanistan markets and from markets all over the world, and how to bridge those instabilities while still trying to do good. And, you know, we applaud Spatial Terra and Scott and Pete as they add new global partners and digital networks to this bigger channel. And develop these economic principles in these new markets. It's going to require a competitive intelligence and a business environment with on-the-ground training, and that's going to be so key going forward. And the most interesting thing, I think, is that while we don't necessarily understand all of the dynamics that go into this, there are proven models, and it's the Applegate watershed models and various solutions that are both here domestically as well as internationally.
So I'm going to end there. She basically said, I don't know what they were talking about. But there is a model, and there's this thing that, like, his brother did. That is the first con that we've caught on. And Kelly, she smiles, she laughs. He's very engaging. He's very humorous. He's making them laugh.
Pizza sits there deadpan.
He doesn't, yeah. Like, they don't know what he's saying. They don't know what the goal really is. He uses all these words, risk mitigation, and they don't know what it is, but they like it. And so from that point, they like him. From that point, Kelly somehow hooks up with Scott. She enjoyed that conversation so much that either before that or after, they became friends, really, really good friends. Then he hires her. Oh, he looks at Kelly. What can I get from you? You're a lawyer? Kelly was a lawyer, okay? And she was a well-known person in the community. She was just a highly decorated citizen.
Obviously, she was on this news program.
And he went to her somehow and said, will you start up a nonprofit, Spatial TERRA? And she's like, sure. Yeah, that's so great. And you can see Jorge, the husband, crying these tears. We trusted him. We trusted him.
I want to pose.
We trusted him.
I don't mind, because I'm trying to be very careful in all the different things that we say here. So note that I am being careful when I say this, but I have to say it. We are reporting on facts here, but we are also a religious show. And what I mean by that is I'm telling you all of this is spiritual warfare, and I know sin and sickness. I cannot speak to the rest of Kelly's life, and I don't know where this cancer came from.
Mm-hmm.
But I can guarantee you that having Scott in her life did not help.
Yeah.
That cancer.
Yeah.
And I would like to say a lot more about what I think about that. And you guys can go from there. But this man is dangerous. And so when I say that we have spent days in prayer and spiritual warfare, just trying to get away from him and to get our minds away from him and to get my family set free from him, and then preparing for this show, guys, I don't want to touch anybody associated with Scott with a 10-foot pole. And I mean that genuinely, until they come out, right? If you've come out, then by all means, please come and talk to me. But like, you don't mess around with this stuff. You do not mess around with this level of evil. And so on the one hand, while I do appreciate those of you that have been listening to the shows to monitor, because somebody had said, Scott's not saying anything about this on his show, he's just proceeding as normal. You guys have sent me screenshots of the group and they're quote unquote praying for us. And last night's show, someone asked in a group, I guess, what it was all about. And I guess Nikki came back and just said that they're praying for us and that there's nothing worth discussing. What we said last night was just, it's not even worth them discussing it. It's so ridiculous. The responses that I got overnight and all day today would say otherwise, that it's definitely worth discussing.
So Kelly DeTore, who we just saw in that video, this episode is dedicated to you. This episode is dedicated to your memory. Kelly DeTore passed away. De La Torre passed away on November 24th, 2013, after a 4-month battle with lymphoma. Very quick. She was surrounded by her family when she died. Although born in Port Jefferson, New York, Kelly grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico. She graduated from Highland High School, received a BS in biochemistry and an MS in chemistry from the University of New Mexico, and a law degree from Rutgers Camden School of Law in New Jersey. This background enabled her to facilitate all aspects of the commercialization of technology, from patents to negotiating strategic partnerships. She co-founded Women in Energy to support communication among women working in the energy industry, wrote about energy and business for ICOSA magazine, that's who we just saw, and hosted Energy 101 on ICOSA Driving Force Radio, who we just saw. She was a finalist in the Denver Business Magazine's Outstanding Women in Business 2013. These activities focused on bringing people together to communicate, create, and collaborate. Why do you think she hit it off with Scott? However, Kelly's success in business was secondary to her husband, Jorge, and her children, Jordy and Gabriella. Nothing was more important to her than family. She was a partner and the best friend and teacher, a nurturer, a guru, and a soccer mom extraordinaire. Kelly focused on the important things of life, love, family, community. And so when I see this and I see where Scott's taken this nosedive away, the problem with what we are going to listen to this tonight. And this is the last thing. And Michelle, you can listen to it like 1.5. We're going to listen to episode 64. He has said, listen to episode 64. It will explain everything. You know what you don't see? Kelly did this really great interview with me and tried to help me with my business. Kelly was a really great lawyer. I loved her. She was family to me. I was family to her. She brought me into her family. Her husband was great. He was a great man. I love that family, and I should have never stolen from them. They were great people. That's what you don't hear. And what you do hear is a whole different story. You don't hear about Kelly. That was Kelly. That was Kelly. That was her husband. He set up a nonprofit for her, and it wasn't a lot of money. What a Christian does is say, listen, man, I was on some hard times. I'm sorry I took that money. Yo, bro, here's double. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. That was awful. I feel for you, but he doesn't feel. He doesn't feel for Jorge. He doesn't feel for the kids. Those are 2 kids. And this is the last part of this show tonight. And then maybe I wish it had been the first, but I wanted to show you and build up for you to come to this moment. This moment. He said, when I found out about how he stole money from a cancer patient, Michelle told Scott, and Scott said, I will bury her. Me. You know who was buried? Kelly De Torre.
De La Torre.
De La Torre.
It's a hard name.
She was buried. She's buried. You buried. She didn't die once. She dies again every time you tell people to go to episode 64. You take her memory and you smush it through the gas chambers. You are a vile, horrible human being because you didn't, not because you stole the money, but because you have taken this family and you have ruined their name. And you didn't do it one time. You do it every single day. Every day this episode is up. Every day you are telling people that man Jorge is a horrible human being. He was a bad husband. He abused his wife.
Is that in episode 64?
No, he just tells us that to us.
That's what he told us. I don't think it's in this episode.
But this episode that you do to cover your name, to make money for yourself. Every time somebody hits play on this, except for tonight we honor Kelly. Tonight we honor her children. Tonight we take every single lie in the name of Jesus that you said about this family, and we cast it down to the depth of hell, and we pray for Jorge and the children, and that their mom's love will continue with them, and God's love would surround them with the power of God, which is what you should have been doing the whole time. You're a faker. You're a liar. You're a deceiver. You are a destroyer of families. You try to destroy people. It's what you do. You want to pray for me, Nikki? Pray for my family to come back together. Because you didn't pray then. He goes into people's lives like a tornado. And he scans the room. And he says, what can I take from you?
Yes.
What can I take from you and you and you? And you have the audacity. When I see the cancer victim and everybody else, you guys know why? You were in Kentucky, in Flemingsburg, and not Fredonia, Kansas? Because Matt and his Christian friends, they saw it online. And they said, Scott, you can't come. And what did Scott do? He got so mad. He got so righteously angry at those horrible, awful people who wouldn't let him have his Bard's Fest there. Because they felt something that I didn't see when I first saw that article. I didn't feel for Jorge or Kelly because I was blinded to the truth. And so was Michelle. And she's going to tell the story on how that story almost destroyed my family. Because every time I brought it up, what did Michelle do? The same thing you guys did because it was a spell. It was a satanic spell. And Michelle, you can tell this story if you want to now, on anything now, or you wanted to say anything, you could say anything. But this story with this woman, it needs justice. It needs vindication. And she died in 2013, and it's 12 years later, and Resistance Chicks at 11:28 on July 31st, 2025. I don't want to do this. I don't want Scott to be mad. So, okay, sorry. Scaring the dog. Nobody has done this because they were afraid of what Scott would do to them.
He said he'd bury you.
I don't know what he has on me. I don't know what he has. I am a girl who lives on a homestead with a friend named Matt, lives in the basement with my sister and my uncle and my mom. And I don't know what he wants to try to do. Because I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke, I've never slept around. I don't do anything. I don't know what lie or storyteller Mr. Spatial Terror wants to create about me.
But he didn't. That wasn't the way that he was trying to bury you, and we've talked about that.
I don't know what he wants to do. I don't know. Am I scared? No. Am I concerned? Yes. I am. I'm be stupid and I would lie if I told you that I was just gung-ho and ready to do this and wanted to do this because this man is violent. He just killed his dog. Okay? I've seen him get mad at me for nothing.
I've seen him get mad at a lot of people.
I've seen him get mad at Duncan.
It's very, very scary.
I know what this man is capable of. He's told me things he's capable of. Not that I'm not, he's in Oregon, thank God he doesn't live near us. I don't know.
But you're not afraid. And I want to make that abundantly clear.
But I don't know. I don't know. And that's why we haven't done this yet.
But we have covered it in protection. And I've asked you guys to cover it in prayers of protection. But
trying to say something for effect here. Okay.
Fine.
I'm
Go
just
ahead. By all means,
letting you guys know. I don't want to cover it up and be like, la, la, la.
No. It's not what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that there's
nothing that I have done in the natural to make sure nothing comes back on us. There's nothing for me to do.
We're just covered by the blood.
All I've been doing is praying.
Amen.
For a solid year and 3 months, every single second of every single day. For you guys, for myself, for my family, for Kelly. And so what you're about ready to hear is a master storyteller who learned your culture, your belief system,
your weaknesses.
And he crafted a narrative. So you're going to hear him talk about General Flynn. The first thing he's going to say is, I don't want you to think about me. I want you to think about General Flynn. I was General Flynn. When I was arrested in 2017, I didn't know what the charges were. He's going to say, I wanted to commit suicide.
Why don't we just let it tell?
Okay, go ahead.
We only have so much time here.
Okay,
so
here we go.
You can stop him on you can stop it on all the spots that you want to stop it on.
Sorry for being impassioned.
It's okay. Let's see.
Just hit play.
Okay.
It'll work. And then you can 1-5. He talks slow. Do what? 1-5. He's fine. He's slow. I promise.
I know, but
my mama
would get ahead.
Reshape your entire thinking of how to take care of your body and keep yourself healthy. And there's going to be a push towards more interviews on the show.
No, that's Coffee with Jesus. Wrong one.
And just the focus.
Okay.
That's the one I was
recent one?
Yeah, but it's still up there.
Right here?
Yeah.
Well,
No. It's there.
Right there?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Episode 64.
This war, or are you an apologist? I know where I stand. I'm an American
That's
first,
slow.
always. And that oath takes me with my oath to country, my oath to God, till the very end. And sharing memes and working on social media is part of what this fight is. But this fight has to be in the real world. Now, today I'm going to tell you my story. And I'm going to tell you my story for a very particular reason. This isn't to glorify myself. I've held off telling this for a long time. And I'm also going to ask you today, if you're going to listen to this podcast, to listen to it in the entirety. Because you need to hear the context of where the story ends. But I want you to get in your head how real this fight is. President Trump, those on the Patriot Movement, and General Flynn have fought to tear down the most evil cabal in the history of the world. And while it's great to read on Q and other places, trust the plan, everything will be okay, I need to put some real visceral context in this for you. If we the people lose, the first ones to get killed and eliminated will be them, meaning President Trump, General Flynn, and the Patriots. It will be ruthless and evil, and they will enjoy, they meaning the left, will enjoy every bit of it. They will glorify it, they will smear it in everybody's face. This war is real. If you're not in this thing every day, dedicating some time in your life, you're missing your country's call. We are in the second revolution now. Make no mistake. And what's at stake are real lives and the complete destiny of ourselves and humanity.
You had to play on your fear. You can turn me down just a little bit.
Welcome to the Bards of War podcast. My name is Scott Kesterson. I am the director and producer of the War Document. It takes the viewer into the world in social media and for future. Respond to every single comment. And I have to apologize. I'm running a little behind. Enjoy everything that you provide to this channel. I'm thinking free. There's going to be an increased attack into presenting information to think, to awaken. It's grounded in truth, grounded in knowledge, and it's grounded in faith. There's a second reason as well. The end of this story is very important to listen to. When that time comes at the end of the story, it'll be very clear. But I don't want you to think about me. I want you to think about General Flynn. I want you to think about what he's about to go through and what potentially could happen. Events in our lives, no matter how strong we are, will challenge us to the very core of who we are. And the only thing that will bring us through is faith and our enduring and relentless belief in God. Now, my time in uniform began in 1983 when I joined the National Guard. And I was in the National Guard from 1983 to 1991. I started as a private E1, which is about as low as you can get. And I left the Guard as a second lieutenant. I had moved from private E1 to E5, which is a sergeant. And then I was nominated to go to military academy where I trained for a year and then received my commission. And then a couple of years later, I resigned my commission, left the Guard so that I could go on to pursue my studies after my bachelor's degree. Now, my dream had always been to be a Special Forces operator. So in 1995, I retook all of my entrance exams and I was offered a fast track into Special Forces. That official title is called an 18 X-ray. I went through my medical exams and I got to my last point of medical review. And I will never forget this moment. I'm sitting in a private office with a doctor across the desk. So he asks me a simple question. Do you have any allergies? And my response was this. I said, the only time I have ever had any issue was when I was 5 years old and I had to use a Ventolin inhaler. And with that, I watched him pull open the drawer, pull out a stamp, and with force stamp on top of my file. Declined. All my dreams at that moment seemed to just fall apart. I was sick to my stomach. This thing haunted me for a number of years, but God had different plans. So at the time,
one time when he was 5 years old, he took a one Ventolin puff. It's over. You can't be Special Forces.
I was running a construction company, and it just seemed like every time I turned around, I was bumping into some headache that was completely diminishing my interest in doing construction. And in spite of the fact I was very successful, I had been published in Better Homes, I had a lot of things going.
I cannot find that publishing in Better Homes.
The work and the legal issues around all of it and the regulations was just degrading it. So when I turned 40 in 2005, I made a decision to start pursuing my passion, which was photography. I would run my company in the day, and then in the evening and at night, I would spend the time either filming or in the darkroom. And I started running a blog. And sometime during that year, I linked up with a photojournalist who had been a Pulitzer Prize winner and was a combat photographer. And we started to exchange ideas. And I had always had a dream of being a combat photojournalist. I mentioned it to him one day, and he said, I'll mentor you. And so I went through what would be one of the most unique and demanding mentorships that you could ever imagine. By the end of that year, in December 2005, I made the decision to inquire about doing an embed. So I called my old National Guard unit. And when I asked about embedding, the response I got was not what I expected. And it went like this. Good to hear from you, Lieutenant Kesterson. Would you like to go to Iraq or Afghanistan? For those of you who don't understand, embeds are really involved in vetting they have to look at your work. They look at who you work for. And I was just caught stunned that I actually was offered an embed. At that time, I had a blog and just one set of published photos. It took me about 30 seconds. And I said, Afghanistan. And so they offered an opportunity for me to go to Afghanistan for 15 months, the entire tour. I became the first citizen journalist embedded in the DoD embed program. I began in the unit's pre-mobilization, which was in March 2006. And then I flew into Afghanistan in May of 2006. And by the end of May, beginning of June, I was in the field and in my first TIC, Troops in Contact, in the eastern part of Afghanistan in a little fire base called Karneh in the province of Zabul. Over the course of the 15-month embed, from 2006 to 2007, I was in Afghanistan for the entire time. I moved from the Pesh Valley to Gardez to Zabul to Farah to Kandahar and Helmand and throughout the province of Uruzgan. I built close ties with special operations units, close ties with Afghans and Afghan elders and leaders. And the singular theme of my stories were always the same, the soldier story. That was done in the legacy of Ernie Pyle, one of the great war correspondents in our history. In May of 2007, I returned back to the United States. Over the course of that first year, I had produced about 135 written stories, 30 video stories, 15 radio programs, and then was awarded an Emmy in 2007 and was nominated for a Peabody that same year. In 2008, I returned to Afghanistan, and I went back to develop a film on Operation Anaconda. And so I based myself out of Gardez, which is in the east of Afghanistan. And during that time, things took their real form. I worked with a colonel over there, and we developed a paper which was titled 3 Wickets and a Bulldozer. And that paper was a study on stability operations in Afghanistan, and it became included on the reading list for General McChrystal, who was coming.
I want to insert here, and let me know on the audio. I can turn it up or down depending on if I need to. But it's hard to follow Scott's story about when he was there and why he was there. He was an embed citizen journalist the first time that he went. But the second time that he went, it seems like it's a little bit different because he wasn't just there to be a journalist and to film. He's there with the 3 wickets and the bulldozer that we talked about earlier.
Into country. It also was sent up to Chief of Station, which was the head of the CIA in Kabul, and with a note to make sure and take a look at this guy, meaning me. Over the course of 2008 and 2009, I was brought into a special operations circle and then began working with a small CIA team. That's the group I worked with from 2009 until the end of 2012. And during the course of that time, I worked for General Scott Miller, who's currently head of all forces in Afghanistan, with my work focusing on information operations, cultural intelligence, and with a heavy emphasis on engagement, meaning I was meeting with Taliban, I was meeting with elders, I was meeting with good guys, and what we
So he goes from being citizen journalist to now he's doing counterinsurgents intelligence work.
With the CIA.
With the CIA and General Miller being his head guy. So he doesn't bridge the gap on why, how.
How do you go from a guy with a camera to now you're suddenly
this super important
CIA guy?
Call bad guys. Most of my work was done as me as a single, me and my interpreter in our vehicle. We drove around country and did our thing. It was also during this period that my paths crossed with Lieutenant General.
What thing are you doing? I'm trying to think about anything in Afghanistan that you would need to do as a single guy from village to village.
So he tells me this story when I was asking. I wanted, and I'll get into this maybe a little bit on our show on Tuesday when I tell my story and our story, and the Cantrells will come on. But when I asked Scott, like I was like, listen, I need you to walk me through your life because I don't get it. And it took a couple of different phone calls. And what I found that Scott would do is I wanted details on like his kind of like life, like an overview, but details. But what he would do is he'd kind of give me a minor like overview and then jump to this very, very detailed story. And then minor details on like the stuff that would really matter. And then just go into this big, long, in-depth story. So what was he doing? I'm the worst on listening to this type of stuff. I don't know how to explain. It just kind of like went in one ear and out the other. But there is a story that he told me about, I think, eating octopus something or other that was really, really, really gross. And he was sitting and he was invited into this big, really big deal meeting, whatever. Like, and you're like the kind where you're sitting on the floor and you got headdresses on and everything like that, right? And they come and they present this and they're really excited about. I don't know if it was octopus. I don't know what it was. It was testicles.
Like, how
it was
do you
something.
get to
I don't know what
octopus?
it was.
I'm
It was
looking
something
at the
brains.
map.
Maybe it was brains. I don't know. It was gross. Whatever it is, I can't think of what it was, but it was something that was really, really gross.
It wasn't octopus, but go ahead.
Yeah, Middle East. It's probably not octopus. It's probably brains. I think it was brains. I don't know. But this part I do remember. You know, he's like sitting on the floor and they're all like looking at Scott, like everybody in the room. And like, does he like it? Does he like the thing? It's like, it's the delicacy. It's very expensive, whatever it is. And he eats it and he says that he likes it, but he didn't. It was really terrible. And so then they proceed to honor him by giving him like a bajillion platefuls of it. And then he had to eat it. And it was really, really gross. There's another story that's similar to that with ice cream and another story with cookies. And so it's all this culture-based stuff that he's telling me where he's in with all of these people, talking to these people and getting embedded in their cultures.
But he's not actually
and getting to know them.
Producing anything.
I don't know. That's all I got.
Flynn. It was during this time I was able to support one of his operations, which was providing cultural in-briefs to his guys that were coming in to do localized intelligence cells. I returned to the United States in 2011 and then was asked to come over and join a special missions unit in Fort Meade, Maryland. And that's where I worked with a group that analyzed and studied emerging tactics and methods and technologies. And we worked globally. So I traveled all over the world. From 2014 to 2016, I had started my own defense company based on the type of work I'd been doing. And I worked primarily with the Army's R&D command up in the Northeast. But in late 2015, through my constant studies and analysis, I arrived at a realization that rocked me to my core. And it's what Q now calls the 16-year plan. It was a very sudden realization that what we were witnessing in politics was the illusion that what was actually being waged against us here in this country was a full-on war to destroy the United States forever. And I don't say that lightly. To destroy it culturally, to destroy it materially, to destroy its military capability, and to root it out to such a degree that it would
playing on your fears again.
It'd be impossible for the United States to ever stand on its feet again. So I took this information and I presented it to some people I trusted very heavily in the special operations community. And when they looked at my analysis, they agreed with my conclusions. So I made a decision in the spring of 2016 that I knew would end my work in Department of Defense. And what that was is I chose to move my skills into politics and support Donald J. Trump. Now, I think some of you may find that statement surprising. It's like, why would that end your DOD work? Department of Defense works in a naive bubble is the best way I can say it, especially military contracting companies. You're never to take a position on a president because the official word is we're supposed to be neutral to politics. The other side of that is that you never want to irritate the incoming leadership because you always want to be competing for contracts. It's a money-grabbing game is all it is. And that's the problem with most defense companies these days. Their interest really isn't national defense. Their interest is in the perpetuation of their business model, which happens to be war. So you can kind of get an idea.
That's an interesting segue to why his Philadelphia business didn't work.
How corrupted that way of thinking is. And that includes most of the people in those jobs. Hate to say it, but it's true. With that decision, I stood up what was called Kilroy Rising PAC. And most importantly, I built this PAC exclusively around special operations veterans. And so I went to work building out the social media models and we began doing engagements.
Yeah, so spatial terror is not going to work. We have to find a new angle. Oh, I know what. I think these special forces guys might get behind Donald Trump. Oh, I think I could do. How else can I get money? Oh, I know. I'll do this Kilroy Rising PAC and I'll raise money again. Nobody knows where the money is. Where's the money for Kilroy Rising PAC? The government sent you 3 documents.
And then in September of 2016, on 9/11, I delivered a letter to Trump Tower for then candidate Donald J. Trump, endorsing him with over 100 names of special operations veterans signed underneath. And that letter was published in Breitbart News. In the last month, we did a road tour leading up to the election. We engaged over 500,000 people on Facebook and over 1 million people via HBO, thanks to Vice News, giving coverage to us and running our story as the last story of their election coverage before the election the next day. In January 2017, after all of the crazy had passed and we'd had some time to take a breath from all the election insanity, I retooled and started something called the American Brand. And the American Brand was an idea that I created based on my previous work to develop a...
I retooled. He's always retooling. He's retooling right now.
Because Kilroy Rising stopped. I'm not making money there. Now I want to try to make money off of people with the American Brand.
Community-based citizen journalist program with an open source intelligence collection sharing hub focused on local communities. It was one of these areas that I felt and still feel is a major gap in what we have going on. We see the big picture, but we don't understand the granularity of what's all going on. So I started this myself. And so I began a road trip through the spring and the summer of 2017, going from community to community, telling stories of small businesses and telling stories of local communities and what was going on. And it started to pick up quite a bit of momentum. And so in August of 2017, I launched a video titled, "We Are Going to War." In that video, I detailed how to use open source tools to communicate encrypted, how to organize local action cells, and mapped out the vision of what I wanted the American Brand to be. And the video went viral. In the first 48 hours, the video did over 140,000 views. And in 72 hours, I had over 2,000 volunteers from across the country. And it was that video that quite literally changed my life. So a week later, while staying in a Marriott in Billings, Montana, where I was taking a break from the road trip, it was late in the afternoon. I was getting ready to do my show, and I had a knock at the hotel door. And I remember thinking, this is kind of late for room service. I opened the door, and standing in front of me was a U.S. Marshal with a warrant for my arrest. And behind him were 3 donut-eating Rambo warriors from the Billings Police Department. I remember looking at the 3 Billings cops, and it was like looking at a rabid dog. This idea of like, we're going to get to tear somebody down. And I remember looking at the U.S. Marshal. And in the time I had in Afghanistan with the work I did, I'll be very honest with you, you get very, very good at reading body language, and you can read truth in the eyes. And I remember looking at that marshal. I was now doing my calculations. Do I fight? Do I comply? And I'm going to tell you, I have no idea why this warrant's issued at this point, and all that's going through my head is fight or flight, with option 3 being comply. The marshal looked at me and he said, "Are you Scott Kesterson?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I have a warrant for your arrest." And he adds, he says, "I don't know what this is about. I've read your file. It makes no sense to me, but I need you to trust me. I need you to work with me. I'm just the messenger." And so we proceeded as he instructs me of what I need to do. He instructs the police to collect my things, put them into impound. And he says to me, he goes, "I'm taking you to jail because if they," and he points to them, "take you, they won't let you make a call home. I want you to be able to call your family." And he says, "I'm not going to put handcuffs on you. I don't want people to see this." He said, "Let's walk outside." So we get to the edge of his SUV, and he says, "I have to apologize, but my rules are I have to put a waist chain on you in handcuffs." And I said, "That's fine, I understand." And he had told me to keep my cell phone handy. We got into his SUV, he shut the door, started up the engine. He said, "Scott, you've got 8 minutes before we get to the jail. Start dialing now." So I started dialing. I was able to get a message to my family, and he asked for the phone. He said, "Give me the phone." And so he then on the phone, he said, "This is Marshall," and he gave his name. He said, "This is my personal cell number. This is my email. Feel free to contact me at any time. If you have any concerns for Scott's safety, I will track him and let you know where he's at." My mind is racing at this point in time. I'm really asking myself, what is going on? After we got off the phone, I said to him, "I've never been in jail. I've never had any fraction in my life." He says, "You'll be okay. Just keep your head down. Keep to yourself. You've got the experience. And remember, trust your training." And I'm telling you at this point, the red flags are everywhere, that this thing doesn't smell right from the very beginning. At this point, I was carrying a top secret clearance. So we get into jail, and you go through your normal processing. I still don't have any charges that I know of. I am being picked up on a fugitive felony extradition warrant. I have no idea what my charges are. So I get into jail. You go through your normal in processing. Takes a couple of hours. Basically, the whole concept of going into jail is to dehumanize you. So they take away everything from you. They put you in a standard jumpsuit, give you some flip-flops. And your mind's racing the whole time. You're thinking in terms of escape and evasion is what you're doing right now. Okay. So I get moved to a holding wing, and you sit there and wait until they assign you to a holding cell. So I walk upstairs. They guide me in. When you hear that door slam behind you, life changes. And it was as if my life had ended for me. And in fact, it had.
Please note, I don't have a problem with this from any standpoint whatsoever, but just so that you can observe, Scott's reading from something that he wrote. Okay, he wrote this. He's reading off of a script. You can tell the way that his cadence is when he's speaking, that he's reading this. He took time to delicately craft this story. This is not just out like off the hip like he does his show sometimes. This is a story that he is reading out loud. So whatever that means to you, just make sure that you're taking note of that.
Except not in the way I expected, and you'll understand that at the end. So as I step into the cell, I look straight ahead of me, and the first thing I see on the back wall is a neo-Nazi swastika penciled on the wall. And at the desk is this guy with a skinhead. He's got tattoos all over his neck. And I remember thinking, this is going to be a long night. So he turns to me and he says, "My name is Steve Metzger," which only made the matter worse because the only Metzger that I'd ever known of was a Metzger that ran the neo-Nazi skinhead organization out of LA in the 80s. So you can imagine now, in my thoughts, I'm like, this is going to get pretty crazy. And then Steve says to me these words: "I've been trying to get the guards to give me some toilet paper and cleaner for days so I could wash that swastika off the wall. It's disgusting." And then he adds, "Good thing you have me as a cellie. God puts us together in amazing ways."
So this is written like a story, and then he adds, it's a story.
Now, I'm not going to kid you. With those words right there, I literally thought my mind was going to explode. And I'm asking myself now, what just happened? What is going on? Now, the next 24 hours were the darkest in my life. And I walked to the edge. And from the training I've had and the experience I've had, I knew too well.
Okay, so he's going to tell you something here
Let him tell it
that
first.
does not make sense.
How to take my life. And I was in the process of doing it when a brilliant white flash filled my head and it stopped me. And what ensues over the next 2 weeks, because I'm held in jail now for 18 days. And I need to emphasize the point here. I'm held for 18 days without charge. And I'll get to more of that in a minute. I was given the gift of getting a glimpse into Paul's experience from the Bible. In fact, it was interesting because when I was
he was getting ready. And I think in the other episode and on suicide he did recently, he says he was like tying sheets together, ready to commit suicide. If this guy is supposed to be trusting his training, and he's only been in like a county jail
for like 24 hours.
And he's like, I'm going to commit suicide. You
wait. Like, okay, hang on. There must be a mistake. Why are you jumping straight to General Flynn? What have you done that makes you jump to General Flynn and jump to suicide? That does not track. It doesn't track that he would go unless he's a mentally unstable person, which yes, he is and was. The fact that you would jump straight to suicide doesn't.
Prison suicides usually don't happen within the first 24 hours, especially for people falsely accused.
Especially if they don't know what they did.
Able to get a phone call out to my pastor. The first thing he said to me was, make sure and read Paul. 2 days later, from the holding cell, I was moved to a main wing. And there I met an amazing variety of people. I met the head enforcer for the Crips. I met Native Americans and Native American elders, meth addicts, alcoholics, all of them, artists, writers, poets. I met common thieves. And you know what they all had in common? The Bible. The most amazing part, though, wasn't that scripture was used as an excuse or to hide. It was scripture was real to them. And they would openly tell you, this is what I did. This is why I'm here. And this is what God's done for me. Now, maybe my experience is a unique profile, but I will tell you from what I've talked to other people, it's not. Some of God's most devout and real followers to him sit inside the walls of jails and prisons. The code in which this environment worked on was very familiar. It was very much like a special operations code. It was, you state honestly what you do, you're held accountable for your truth. And those that decide to deviate from that used to pay a pretty harsh price. In that 20 days, there were a number of fights. One in particular stands out because one kid who decided the code wasn't worth following was a liar, constantly trying to cause fights right next to my bunk. Another guy tried to take him out. And I say take him out. This kid's eyes literally almost popped out of his head from the chokehold that was put on him. And I'm not exaggerating. It was brutal to watch. But there you say nothing. You just turn your head and let that fight between those two people end as it should. The kid survived, by the way, but not without a lot of pain. On the 4th day inside the Billings jail, I was arraigned for my felony extradition warrant. The attorneys cannot give you your charges yet because you're not at home destination, and they can't advise you at all. So I'm in new territory here, and I just basically go with the flow, accept the extradition, and hope for the best that I'm going to be moved out. But your mindset changes because once you're inside, you don't know if you're going to get out anytime soon. Your world becomes very myopic, and you focus very much what's before you. And now you're struggling with some of the hardest things. I had served with the highest integrity to this nation, and I had served with some of the finest commanders who trusted my word. And in one move, I'm now charged as a fugitive felon, and I still don't even know what my charges are. But by the end of the 4th day, at the end of my arraignment, when I couldn't be told my charges, I learned what my charges were, and I learned about them through our good friends in the mainstream media. Within 1 hour of my arraignment, 15 articles were published about me that went national, TV and written stories, all of them stating that I had stolen money from my own nonprofit, from a fundraising event that I had done, from a person who died of cancer who happened to be my business partner.
Notice how he says, stole money from my own nonprofit. The emphasis there, I'm not reading into this. The emphasis on that tone is how absurd that I'm going to use an example. There was once a time where someone said a woman was raped by her husband, and someone says, well, your husband can't rape you, right? That's ridiculous. Yes, your husband can rape you, and yes, you can steal from your own nonprofit. And most of the time when nonprofits are stolen from, it's the people in the nonprofit. So the fact that he has this incredulity that the idea that he could steal from his own nonprofit, it's like, it's my money already.
Say what his
essentially what he's trying to say is that it was my money already. So like, how could I even steal from it?
Because he actually believes that, but it's not true. And Kelly set it up.
Sorry. But by the end of the 4th day, at the end of my arraignment, when I couldn't be told my charges, I learned what my charges were, and I learned about them through our good friends in the mainstream media. Within 1 hour of my arraignment, 15 articles were published about me that went national, TV and written stories, all of them stating that I had stolen money from my own nonprofit, from a fundraising event that I had done, from a person who died of cancer who happened to be my business partner. And the minute I saw that, I realized what had just happened. Those articles are still out there. You want to dig, you dig. But this is what I'm going to tell you. I want you to listen to the end of this story. I've put up with so much hell the last 2 years from trolls and wannabe patriots. People that will claim that they're awake, but they'll still believe a headline. So bear with me, because as I said in the beginning, I present truth here. So I get transferred to Denver on day 18. I go through the 2 days of holding. I then get a hearing finally on the 20th day. And in the hearing, The charges are given, which I'm charged with stealing money from my own nonprofit, and then I'm given a personal recognizance bond, which means they're just going to let me out of jail. I get out of jail in December of 2017. I accept a plea of guilty. But the plea is very important to understand here because the plea is a suspended sentence. Those words are very critical. It means that you've accepted a plea, but there is no final sentence. Your sentence is pending this unsupervised probationary period of 2 years, and then they'll give you your final sentence. There are no...
That's not true.
It
was a
is.
deferred sentence.
It was a suspended sentence.
It's a suspended, but what I mean is you pay the money or
Right.
you go to jail.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it was, Scott. It wasn't, oh, you're on probation, and if you do something bad, then you're going to
No,
jail.
you have to pay
That's
them
what he
mon-
just made that out to seem like. Oh, I'm on probation. If I do something bad and I misstep, then I'm going to jail.
Right. No.
It's you paid the money
You have
or
to
you
pay the
go
money
to
back.
jail.
Yeah.
That's what it was. And we've played that clip like 5 times in the past 2 days.
official charges on your record. That needs to be very clear here because
Like
as I
Leah
take
here.
that plea and I go back to the airport to fly out, as I'm boarding the plane, another barrage of 15 media articles hit claiming that I've pleaded guilty to a felony and have been ordered to pay restitution. Okay? Those are the media headlines. So for 2 years, I live down in southern Georgia on a small farm. I go off grid. I pull my stuff offline. After trying to kind of get my social media thing going again, the trolls and the viciousness is just too much. I start working on my writing. I start working on my films. I start retooling my life. My past life is now done and my new life is before me. And what I know now is I've experienced an understanding.
This is where he's going right now. His past life is behind him. That's why he took down the LinkedIn. That's why he took down the website. And his new life is now before him. He has to retool, rebrand, and he may even change his name. I don't know.
Hit claiming that I've pleaded guilty to a felony and have been ordered to pay restitution. Okay,
Like
those are
that's
the media
false.
headlines. So for 2 years,
But you
I
were.
live down in southern Georgia on a small farm. I go off grid. I pull my stuff offline. After trying to kind of get my
Pastor
social media thing
Travis.
going again, the trolls and the viciousness is just too much. I start working on my writing. I start working on my films. I start retooling my life. My past life is now done, and my new life is before me. And what I know now is I've experienced an understanding of faith at an entirely new level. All the things that I had been holding on to are stripped from me. My vanity, my pride, my ego, it's gone. And the only thing you have left is to face God and to be with God and to find strength in that. And that relationship ends up being the most empowering, most fearless relationship you can ever have in your life. So on December 5th of this last year in 2019, I returned to Denver for my sentencing hearing. And I won't kid you, I was nervous. I prayed and I held hard to faith. And though I felt it would be okay, we have to be clear here, it was in God's hands. So what is okay to me and what God's plans aren't always lining up, but you just have to go with that, right? But what I was also very clear on is that legal system had been turned on its head once, and I knew damn well it could happen again. When I get to the hearing, I'm thinking back to the discussion we had when I took the plea. And I remember signing that plea. When I was signing it with my attorney, I said, this is a lie. I can't even sign this. What it says here is a lie. I'm admitting to something I didn't do. And he said, this is as good as I can get, or we take it to court. And he said, this is what they're telling me. If you want to take this to a jury trial, they're going to push for a speedy jury trial, which translates to we're not going to have much time to prepare a case. And unless you can get everything removed, meaning that the jury completely exonerates you, they will push for a minimum of 1 year in jail. And if they can convince the jury, 10 years in jail. And this is the calculus at that point in time. Because I've had people ask me, well, why didn't you take it to a jury trial? I've had 15 media articles saturate the Denver environment in a blue city, and I am a hard red person. That's the first thing. What's the possibility of getting a fair jury trial? Add to that, the theme of this entire media assault has been me being a pilfering, evil money manipulator that has taken advantage of a dying cancer patient. The message was very clear. They were trying to tell me we control your destiny. The problem is they didn't. God controls my destiny. God controls me. So the calculus you get to is I'll take the plea and take whatever comes. So as I'm remembering that, I see the DA, the prosecuting DA, as he comes in, and I said, you remember my case? I'm here today. I was trying to see if I can get my cases moved up on the docket so I can leave a bit early because we're at sentencing today. He says, just a second, let me check my computer. So he checks and he comes back and he says, have you been in any more trouble over this last year? And I laughed. I said, no. I said, sir, you do realize that I carried a top secret clearance before this all started. And he gets a big smile on his face and he smacks me on the shoulder. He says, congratulations. He says, we're going to seal the case. So I walk up to the podium. The judge asks my name as if I'm...
Congratulations. The DA. Let me read that. Just get that back right here.
And I laughed. I said, no. I said, sir, you do realize that I carried a top secret clearance before this all started. And he gets a big smile on his face and he smacks me on the shoulder. He says, congratulations. He says, we're going to seal the case. So I walk up to the podium. The judge asks my name as if I'm listening to words from the best and wildest dreams I could ever have. The DA says to the judge, Your Honor, Mr. Kesterson has fulfilled all the state expectations. We are withdrawing the plea and requesting that his records be permanently sealed. Let me put that in simple terms. All charges dropped, case sealed. God's hand, God's work, and truly his disciple was born. Now,
I don't believe. I don't believe the DA said that we are asking for those records to be sealed. In Colorado, you can ask for the records to be sealed. And that's what I believe Scott did. I don't have proof of that because the records are sealed.
for those of you that are out here that are saying things like, well, Q says that Flynn will ultimately be free. The latest thing on an X22 report is an analysis that suggests that General Flynn might have to spend 30 days in jail. You're so antiseptic about this, it's starting to make me pissed off and sick. This is a human being. I don't care whether General Flynn is pardoned or whether the concept of this is he doesn't have to go to jail, that they actually get a judge that does the right thing, or whether General Flynn has to spend time in jail. First and foremost, this entire situation should absolutely inflame you. And I hope that when hearing my story, you start to realize how corrupt this damn system is. I went from being being charged as a fugitive felon, being told with over 30 media articles that I had been pilferer and exploiter of a dying cancer patient, forced to pay restitution, to the final order that says in the final audit of the case, no restitution ordered, no charges, case sealed. That's the system we have. General Flynn is at the top. He's dealing with the swamp. These people are sick, they're evil, and they're all in bed together. From the media to the judicial system to the FBI to every aspect of law enforcement has elements of corruption that all link back to the same thing. Ruin people's lives and make sure that they understand that the system will control your destiny. And when you look at General Flynn and what he's facing, the weight on that man is enormous. I have walked a similar path. I cannot conceive of what it feels like to have probably at this point over 10,000 articles globally written on him, disparaging his name, moving him from being one of the greatest intelligence officers this country has ever developed to something next to Benedict Arnold. It sickens me. It infuriates me. And my rage inside that I feel is truly righteous indignation at its highest level. So Patriots, you will have a decision to make. I know what my mission is, and my mission is to fight this rancer. I know where I stand, and I know how much I'm willing to give, because they tried to take everything away from me once. Believe me, the only thing they did was embolden my belief in God, my strength and faith, and wage my war stronger. And if you're here with me, then know this channel's built on knowledge, on faith, in truth, and in God. So as we step forward here towards the 28th of January, where General Flynn is going into his sentencing hearing, he doesn't know what the outcome's going to be. We have a rabid left that would like to see nothing more than to smear him to a point that it would break his soul. I know that won't happen. But for every single one of you out there that's trying to find solace in, well, Q says, Q that, put that crap aside. This is a war on a human soul. These events are massive. The weight that you carry when you walk this walk is unbelievable. My gift for what they tried to do with me is to bring as many of you as I can to support that prayer for General Flynn, because that walk can be very lonely. And the only way you're going to get through it is with God and faith. And the only way that we can affect the outcome to keep his strength within him is a global attack with prayer. What they've done to him is unconscionable. He retired to go fight for us. So it's time we give to him. Time to stand, Patriots. Time to hit red lines. It's time to fight. And we fight with prayer. We fight with faith. We fight with engaging people.
Did we pause on the part where he said he didn't have to pay restitution?
To jail, that they actually get a judge that does the right thing, or whether General Flynn has to spend time in jail. First and foremost, this entire situation should absolutely inflame you. And I hope that when hearing my story, you start to realize how corrupt this damn system is. I went from being charged as a fugitive felon, being told with over 30 media articles that I had been pilferer and exploiter of a dying cancer patient, forced to pay restitution, to the final order that says in the final audit of the case, no restitution ordered, no charges, case sealed. That's the system.
So what he's trying to say is that at the sentencing, there was no more restitution that had to be paid. But that's not what he's saying. He's saying the whole thing was thrown out. I never had to pay any restitution. And that's a lie.
Why would the judge say, have you been in any more trouble?
If he hadn't been in trouble
Have you been
to
in
start
any
with.
trouble, Mr. Kesterson? Why are you there before the judge? When you say no restitution ordered, you're telling us a misdirection. There was no restitution ordered then because you had already paid it, because the news reports say that you handed a cashier's check
in order to be let out on that probation. You had to pay already.
And we have it on good authority, somebody who's a realtor, that it may be possible that his parents
footed that bill.
And they might have some proof of that. And I'm guessing it's probably true because, of course, your parents always bail you out. That's what you do. So, Michelle, we're going to round this off, but I'll just round off my final thoughts tonight. Thank you for sticking with us.
Please don't go anywhere because I have a big punchline to give for tonight's show anyway.
Thank you for sticking with us tonight. This man has had a whole life of crafting narratives, making big promises. Mm-hmm. He was already a great storyteller. The problem with his storytelling, as I was driving and was thinking today, is he should have just been an author. Scott, you did miss your calling. If you wanted to lie to people and make money off of them, write the fiction. What you just wrote was a beautiful piece of fiction, Scott. We all felt it. And that's why your viewers, your listeners, and that's why you don't have viewers. Why does he have a podcast? Because he doesn't want you to see his face. We were the ones that encouraged his face out there, really.
And he hated it. He fought me on that. He got really mean to me about that a lot of times.
Okay, we didn't understand that he was trying to hide his face.
He said that he didn't have his camera set up right. He wanted it to look more professional. And I'm like, everybody likes the way your setup is. What's wrong with you? He was lying.
this man is a wonderful storyteller. He tells beautiful fictional stories. But they're not, but he tells them, the problem is that when you say you're a storyteller in a negative sense, that means you're a liar. You're a man of tall tales. And you craft stories for a living, but they're not real. It's two truths and a lie, or two lies and a truth. You weave in a little bit of truth and the rest seems to make sense. So Scott, you know you probably should have gone to jail. I don't want to make any, you look at what happened with all these different things and you raise all this money, and it is illegal to raise money under false pretenses or to keep it. It is. I know churches do it all the time. But if you ever, one of the little kids, Isaiah, had said,
one of the Cantrell kids
said, Scott, you have built, and not to him, but to his dad, Scott has built a prison of his own bars. And the problem is you wrote prison stories behind your own bars. And now you have to live with the fact that your fictional stories, you pined them off as fact. They weren't. And I don't know if there's hope for you. But that's not my purpose right now. Because you got to get to the back of the line. Because we have to look for hope for all those other people first. Because you served yourself first. And the first will be last. And the last will be first.
So I want to bounce off of the righteous indignation that Leah had in saying we were going to dedicate, tonight's episode to Kelly De La Torre, the person that Scott does not name in that episode and just calls her the cancer victim.
Cancer patient.
Cancer patient, whatever.
Don't say victim, just cancer
whatever,
patient.
just cancer patient.
That
just so happened to be my business partner.
Mm-hmm.
This is what Scott does all the time when he gets ready to throw somebody under the bus. He just diminishes the relationship that he had with them when he talks on air about them. He's already started doing that about us, which is very interesting. So when Scott comes on, he says, I want to tell you my story. He's never come on to tell Kelly's story. Ever. Not one time. You guys don't even know her name unless you've looked her up. He's never told Kelly's story. They were close, and their family was close with Scott. And even when I asked Scott about this story, he didn't highlight Kelly. It was like he didn't even care about her. All he could think about was his own anger at what he's been through and how he's been run through the mud. Okay? I do need to make a correction. If we had said that Jim's son committed suicide, that is not true. And I'm so sorry. He OD'd. That is not a suicide. That's the devil suiciding you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to make that correction clear before I move on with this. And I'm so sorry, Jim, for if we misspoke on that. I kind of put them in the same tragic category. Category.
Same when you think of an overdose. But yeah.
Either way, the devil has robbed that person of life. How do you get to the place where you overdose, right? And it was an accidental overdose. So, Jim, please, from the bottom of our hearts, forgive us. We did not mean to misspeak on that. On Tuesday, we're going to do part 3 of this sordid story of Scott Kesterson. What Scott did to us and our family is in the same line that he has done to everybody in his whole life. That he has, like Leah was very impassionedly saying, he scans the room and says, what can I get from you? Sociopaths and psychopaths, their set of morals are derived from what is right and what is wrong, meaning what is good for them and what is bad for them. If it's right, if it's good for them, it's wrong if it's bad for them. That is Scott Kesterson. Okay? I was under this spell for 14, I started to really come out from underneath of this spell a couple of months before I walked away, but not fully until I walked away. So I'm under this spell. I don't take any responsibility at this point. I did for a long time for anything that I said or anything that I did when I was under that spell. It was not me. It was 100%, 1000% not me. But I'm going to tell you a part of this story that I have not shared yet, and it's the most important part. This is my story that I'm going to relate to you. When Scott was being abusive to the Cantrells and didn't want to be around them, and he had the dogs and he couldn't figure things out, he was living in the barn. Scott and I talked every night, and this is when I was pressing him on, you know, I want to know your story, I want to know your backstory, and all the things. And then Leah had brought up to me this, and I said, you know, Leah's bringing this up. I believe you. I just went straight into it. I believe you. No matter what you're going to say to me, I believe you. It's okay. Just tell me the truth. And I want to know. And he says, go listen to episode 64. And I got mad. I said, no, I'm right here. Tell me the story now. And he's like, well, I can't remember what I said. So I don't care what you said. Tell me the story now. Tell me what happened. I don't care what you said in episode 64. I couldn't care less. Tell me the story. That's at the time when he said that if Leah came out to try to talk about this, he would bury her. And then I got very upset and I said, that's my family. Even if Leah and I are not agreeing right now on things because of you, because you're trying to split my family apart. I didn't say that. You can't, if you bury Leah, I'm like, you bury me. You bury resistance chicks. You bury everything. Like, he's like, I don't care. I'll bury her. So after he tells me this story, and it is a told story. And I think the reason why he didn't want to say it is because he didn't have his script.
Is it very the same like that?
There was more emphasis on the awfulness of Jorge and how abusive he was. And
so he had to take the money from that he raised.
But no. I can't remember exactly what he said, but essentially what he was saying is it was very complicated, the reason why he still had the money in his account. He was saying that he couldn't release the funds to Jorge for certain legal purposes because of the nonprofit. He couldn't just give it to him. And so it was just still in his account.
But then the newscasts say he spent it.
That's not the story that I got. The story that I got was that the money was just still there.
Until 2017.
Right. Or something like that. I don't know. But somehow it was because he couldn't give it because of legal purposes. And it was all very convoluted. And forgive me for not remembering all that he said about what happened with that.
But you didn't believe him even then.
So I loved him so much as a brother, as a friend, the way that you guys did. And I believed in his goodness at his core being. And you're going to have to step off camera while I tell this story if you can't keep your poker face together, because I need you to be serious here.
No, it was pain.
This is serious.
I'm smiling with pain.
Don't smile with pain.
Okay. Don't smile with pain. Okay.
This is important. This is the most important part of all of tonight.
It's an uncomfortable smile. Go ahead. It's like wincing.
She knows what's coming.
It was a wince.
I said to Scott, in all of my love and all of my compassion and all of my understanding and all of my trying to make him feel better, I said, Scott, here's the thing. I know you. I know who you are. I know your heart. And if you have been, I didn't believe him. I did not believe that he was telling me the truth. But I didn't fault him for it. I understood why he did. So I told him that. I said, I understand why you did it. I understand why you even lied to me just now, if you've been lying to me. I understand why you lied on the episodes, and I understand why you couldn't tell everybody. I said, but it's okay. Because if you have been, when God is ready and you can tell everybody, it's going to be okay. And no one is going to be upset. And I'm not going to be upset. And I just want you to know that it's okay that you've been lying about it to everybody. And I was so sincere and so loving. I am almost 100% sure that this was a video call, because I remember it in my mind's eye. If it wasn't a video call, the interaction was as if it was. I can't explain that, except for astral projection. I feel he looked at me and he said, "Thank you for saying that. No one has ever offered that to me before." And he teared up. And I remember there was an unspoken exchange between Scott and I that said, "I know you're lying. You know you're lying." And Scott going, "I know you know I'm lying. And I know you know I've been lying about it. And thank you for taking this weight off of my shoulders that I've been lying about it." You guys can take what you want from that story that I just told you. Hearsay, this is Michelle's opinion. It is. That's all I've got. But I knew in that moment that Scott and I had an agreement that he had been lying about it all. But I was okay with it because I knew his heart, and I knew that he was good, and I knew that he did it out of fear and I told him, I'm like, "Scott, if you had just come forward at the time and just said the truth, you know," and I can't remember I think even at that time, he probably even said like, "Yeah." So that's almost an admission. That is an admission, right? Like, yeah, I should have just told the truth. Like, everyone would have been okay with it. I don't know what else to offer you guys for that. That's my lived experience with this human being, if you can even call him that. But one thing I can say, and I'm going to get into this at length on Tuesday, and Tuesday's going to be a much different show than what you experienced last night and tonight. It's going to be emotional, it's going to be raw, it's going to be real, and it's going to be shocking. Not that the last 2 nights weren't any of those things, but it's still going to be different. Scott has an uncanny ability to pull out from you the thing that he wants you to say to him and about him. And he doesn't even really have to prompt you in it. It's mind control, it's demonic, it's manipulation, and you're the one that has initiated it. And so it makes it sound like it came from you and it was really him. So that's the end of tonight's show. That last line makes me sick, says Deb. That was from the actual clip that we were playing. I'm so proud of you guys for sticking with us. This is a very long episode tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night for our regular headline news. We're going to take a break. We were going to come back Saturday. So if you heard Saturday thrown out in last night's episode, please disregard that. We're going to come back on Tuesday. The reason we're going to do that, A, is to give it all a break, give it time to rest, time for us to shift gears into the different type of episode that it's going to be. And also we want to do it on the Healing for the Fractured Soul night, because that's what it is. It's a Healing for the Fractured Soul episode.
This was very powerful. Again, thank you.
I have been getting emails while we've been doing the show, and messages from you guys. There's so much to this. Please feel free to continue to message us, to continue to leave comments and your questions, whatever donations that you made, whatever information you would like to send to Leah and I will try to get back with you in a timely manner. I just finally made it through all of my 18,000 emails down to 0. And now I'm back up to 125 of emails that need to be responded to. I'm humbled that you guys have listened to us for this long. So I'm not going to keep you any longer unless Leah has anything else.
How come we can't?
Chris says he knew that you were under his spell. Never again. I do need to, someone that was asking on YouTube, there were some comments. Nanya says, I'd say so as well. I had no clue, and I followed his podcast for a few years now, at least off and on. He does a lot of doom and gloom, and it gets tiring to hear, which is why I would take breaks. Azure says, is Glad Tidings partnered with Scott? ? We do not know if they are still partnered with Scott or not. I know that there was at least a temporary rift when Pastor Dave was very upset and wrote a very curt and, from Scott's standpoint, upsetting email to him about the Vote Jesus thing. Don says, I guess you guys didn't know his past before collaborating with this scumbag. 100%.
That would be an understatement, Don.
Gina says, our government has definitely hired worse than this guy. Same type. Roger says, I was just watching Man in America live. This guy's live promoting this same thing there. Live promoting what? I did hear from multiple people that he was on Man in America. I didn't really want to address that tonight, but I know Seth Holhouse. I've spoken with him. I don't know if we actually interviewed him yet or ever.
I did one time.
maybe in person at the, I think he's a good man. I think he's very sincere. If Scott's on his show, he's just under the same spell as everybody else. So I don't begrudge Seth for having Scott on his show at all. Harley says, so very sorry that he came after your family like he did. I used to think that I was a good judge of character, but I was conned by this one. You and everybody else do not feel bad. Please don't feel guilty. Well, Lee and I went through it, and I'll end with this. In our initial phone calls to some people that we felt like we needed to tell right away. In the beginning, we were very humble about it. And we're like, we made the mistake. We missed it. It's our fault. You know, that. And we got the proverbial pat on the head. You learned your lesson. You know, we all kind of saw it, whatever. Well, you never came to us and told us, but that's okay. I'm not holding any grudges at all whatsoever. And now Lee and I quickly got rid of that. We were assaulted spiritually, physically, emotionally, and mentally, and attacked by the devil. And it's, if anybody can say that they were General Flynned by Satan, it's us. And it was over this. And Scott Kesterson was the U.S. government position. Okay.
Yeah. And nobody else has come forward. And now we're the only ones. Has anybody else done a Kesterson podcast? Anybody? Exposing. Hello? Anybody else telling everybody else? Anybody? Anything?
Right.
I messaged Doc. We'll wait to hear back from him.
You guys have been asking about Doc. Several of our friends love him, and we do too, by the way.
I don't know where,
but I don't know where he's at on
for
this.
governor. I don't know where he's at on this. He had reached out one time. Our friend Jamie and Donica said, you need to reach the Resistance Chicks. A couple months ago, he said, I hear we need to talk. I said, I'm open. Hadn't heard from him.
We wanted to talk to him before we did the show, but he couldn't make it happen. So Leah just finally texted everything to him. When we hear back, we'll let you know. I know you guys are asking. Is Doc on the in? Is he on the out? But here's what I would say to you guys on all these people. I don't think that anybody is a part of Scott's con. I don't think that at all. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. You know, some of you are like, well, I don't really like Leah Merritt. You know, guys, no, I love Lee. And she's got some way out there ideas, but like, she's great. All right. She's taken by the con too. All right. There's nobody out there except for Carrie Madej, which Scott's not even associated with anymore, where I can say, you know, fraud. You'll hear us call the frauds out on the show. I don't think that anybody that's behind Scott right now is like, you know, any of the big names anyway. Any of the names.
I don't know any of the new people. I don't know the.
No, I just mean names we know. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, like, everybody's under the con. He's a con man. He's a con artist. He's a professional. That's it. The sponsor for tonight's show, Leah pulled up, thank you, is Alfred Kinsey and the Monsters of America. It's our documentary that we did without Scott. Praise the Lord. This time last year. It's been one whole year.
Nobody's seeing it, but
so I would love for you guys to, it's free for you. So it's not really an advertisement. We get nothing out of it other than you guys watching this hard work that we put into this documentary. It's called Alfred Kinsey and the Monsters of America. You can go to resistancechicks.com. While you're there, please sign up to be part of our email list. I have been emailing about these specials, and I'm going to try to do better about doing that. I'm not very good at sending out emails, so you won't get spammed. Click on the search box and type in the word monsters, and part 1 and part 2 are there, or you can watch it in its entirety and share it with everybody that you know. Because
this is so heavy. I appreciate you being so bold for doing this. Continued prayers for you.
If we allow history to be rewritten, whether it's about Scott Kesterson, Alfred Kinsey, Winston Churchill is in our documentary, Margaret Sanger, and so many more, then we are destined and doomed to repeat it. And we are allowing monsters like Scott to continue. It stops here. I will say this, these were explosive, and thank you. This is Leah's research. Leah gets huge kudos for all of the in-depth research that she has done.
Thanks to the Cantrells. They sent me some of the videos.
The research that I have done, I'm very good at finding people. Very good at finding people. I can't talk about those things. They're not in the show. And I would like to say this, Leah, as a whole, there's so much that we haven't talked about that we will talk about on Tuesday. Still about Scott and his past and some things. But there is a boatload of things that we cannot say on air.
Yeah.
And it would crush you, probably. Okay. I just can't say it on air. Either I'm protecting somebody's story that doesn't want to be out, or it's just too much. Okay. So these are the facts that we can give you guys, and that's it. Deb says, I watched the premiere last year while walking laps in my pool. You are so amazing. I was wondering why Carrie Madej had never come back on his show. I don't know. I know that Scott has not had good words to say about Carrie either, but I think a con can spot a con.
Somebody.
I will. Do you want to read that? I don't. We can. So for those of you that don't know, I think most of you do know that we had a show, Mass Faith 3, a channel, Mass Faith 3 on YouTube. We lost it. Then we had Resistance Chicks. We lost it. It's back now. And somebody left a comment that just found us recently again because the Resistance Chicks channel came back. And I remember all the names and all the people.
Mama to We Are Borg.
I know. So she is just saying that she came across our live stream yesterday about Scott. She says, I was elated to see you both again, but wow, what a live stream. I have no idea who Scott is and honestly have never heard of him. Regardless, I listened to the stream and was appalled by what I heard, being I have no reason to not believe you ladies because you have always been trustworthy in my eyes. I decided to watch your part 2 today. That's when I noticed that Scott Kesterson was live on Man in America. If he is making the rounds to the truth seekers, I'm grateful I came upon your stream and know now full well what a con man he is. I'll be watching MIA just to see Man in America, just to see what he is saying. Anyways, I thought I'd let you all know. Thank you so much for exposing such a vile snake.
Well, if you felt like it, you could send these streams to Man in America.
Maybe that would be, if anybody wants to send them to
God,
Seth.
I thank you so much. Seal up these words. If we said anything we weren't supposed to say, cover it up in your blood.
Amen.
We don't want to disparage. We don't want to spread mistruths. We're just trying to spread the truth. And forgive us if we were overly passionate about some things. Please be with Jorge and the family with Kelly. Please expose the truth. And as we all come before you right now, God, this is not about exposing people. This is not about throwing one man under the bus. This is just about trying to stop a guy from hurting more people. That's all that this is. That's all this is.
Yeah.
And hopefully, what happened to Michelle will help heal other people who have maybe gone through trauma or PTSD. And it's not necessarily a show necessarily about Scott. It's about how you can identify wicked people and get free from that. So I just pray that after the end of the show, people will forget about Scott and they won't hear his name anymore.
Amen.
But when something inside of them will click, that they'll get set free from some narcissistic sociopath in their lives, and that they would learn to spot a con artist before they get pulled in. And I just pray, Father God, that you pull all of the wool that's been pulled on our eyes, take it off. I ask you, Father God, for healing for everybody who's watching tonight. I ask, Father God, for everybody who has listened to that podcast, that you would bring them healing, that you would set them free, that you would restore them. I just pray, Father God, that you would surround everybody watching this right now with your angels. And I just pray that these words will be sealed up that are supposed to be going out there in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Lee, I know you don't want, I know you're ready to sign off, but I do feel like I could wait and save it for Tuesday, but I just want to read this that was being sent. I'm not going to read the name while we were doing the show. I just feel like these are important to read. So forgive me. This person says, I believe on Monday morning show, Scott mentioned Charlie moved on for a better opportunity. He said he was great, had some problems, including a divorce, and continues to pray for him. I don't recall him mentioning Hannah recently. I don't believe any bricks were ever ordered. No, they were not. You're correct about that. And the $56,000 was supposed to go to Sammy's Kitchen, Jim's mobile food truck, that I'm sure never happened. She says, have you talked to Doc Pete? He was supposed to be on about 6 weeks ago, but canceled. Crickets. She said Sammy OD'd. Scott said Sammy OD'd. And yes, we're correcting that. Thank you. She says, I could not find any information about the new, quote, anti-Semitism law that supposedly started July 27th, which required him to take down all the Bard's pages to avoid a $5 million a day fine. So, excuse me. This is the first time hearing about this.
Wow.
That's the reasoning that he's saying he has to take down the websites? Because that is the biggest, boldest faced lie I have ever heard in my life. There's no anti-Semitism on the Bard's Nation site.
Twitter would have to be taken down.
He would have to, like the Podbean episodes, like this is ridiculous. Every episode he ever did would have to come down because he's so anti-Semitic. Since when do laws start on a Sunday, especially a Sunday that's not on the first of the month? If this is the case, how is he still able to spout his anti-Israel stance on Podbean when he said that on Sunday? I was really surprised. Again, the pieces are starting to fit together. Now, this part we did not get to. And I'm just here to tell you guys, this man is lying about everything. He has an alias. His last name, Scott Collard. He had that for I don't know how many years. It's the last name of his first wife. He's very difficult to find because of that, because a lot of things that he did were under that name. But I'm going to read it. I'm getting ready to read it.
No, I'm trying to keep it going.
Okay. Philadelphia. A few Thursdays ago, he mentioned how he messed up his Bald Guy brew order and had it shipped to his billing address in Philadelphia. billing address. Shouldn't that be on a credit card? At the time, I thought it was strange he had a billing address in Philly. Lee and I have done so much digging on this man, it's not even funny.
Anybody could go there.
He still has that address in Philadelphia. He still, according to all internet that I can find, has that
2620
property
Martha
in
Street,
Philadelphia.
Suite 202.
I don't know what goes on there. I don't know what comes out of there. I don't know what kind of satanic ritual abuse stuff. I don't know. I'm not accusing him of that, but I'm just saying, like, it's weird. So then fast forward to he wins the Phyllis Schlafly Award and goes back to Philadelphia. And I don't know if he mentioned it to you guys on his show. He certainly didn't talk about it with me.
He said he had to stay with
actively.
Corey Terry. Why didn't he just stay at his...
But why didn't he hearken back to, like, these are my stomping grounds. This is where I started Spatial Terra, which was my great business. I'm talking to him actively while he's gone there for the Phyllis Schlafly Award the whole time. And he's not mentioning anything to me about when he lived there. He hid everything. He hides everything. He lies about everything. And the things that I have had to come to grips with in my own mind and in my own, just like, okay.
Is it the fancy building or the one that's...
I don't know. I know. I'm like, okay, I know you're a criminal and I've already come to grips with that. But now I'm having to rewrite in my head all the times where I asked him questions point blank and he lied to my face. And now I know the lie and I know the truth to the lie. And I'm having to go back and rework all the times that I had, like, he was hiding people behind my back. He was hiding friends behind my back, behind your back. He's hiding this business that he owns in this building and this Philadelphia address behind everybody's back. This man is the most, he's a liar. He's a con artist.
He's in the fancy building. Looks
all
like,
right.
I don't know.
And yes, Doc has been down in Texas rescuing and recovering the flood folks. He has been, and we know that's why he's busy. So we're not upset about not hearing back from Doc. We're just stating a fact that we haven't. Okay, we're not holding a grudge.
He's got a suite
very,
in
very
the
busy.
fancy building.
So I don't know what the Philadelphia address is. He didn't say, "Hey, I'm going to stop by and do a couple of things while I'm there for my business that's there." It's
right
all just very strange. And I just, a lot of times.
You should call Soul Space Yoga and see if
I want to vomit. Does anybody live in Philadelphia that could go and visit?
No, it's
knock on the door.
I think you should call Soul Space Yoga and see if they know anything about their neighbors. Yeah.
What's going on there? I do know this. I know that Scott had somebody had left in the chat. I think it was Ovi. Thank you. The business partners that he had was shoot, and so far back. Ovi, thank you for finding this. Here we go. Wait, I got this. Let me read this. 2 companies, same address. The manager and secretary was David Garcia. I've heard him say that name to me. I don't remember the reference of it, so thank you. And Brandy Hansen. I don't know who that is, but I do know that he had a long-standing girlfriend of 8 years. And her name was Brandy. We're going to have to assume that's the same person. And she was listed as the, I guess, secretary or something like that.
How'd you find that?
So
I haven't been able to find that.
Thank you. That's very, very helpful. Anyway, it's all lies. There's a house of cards here, guys. And he has built this very solid cult following. And just to remind you one more time, because I said this to somebody already today, that Scott had asked somebody that we spoke to,
I need to go let the dog out.
To reaffirm his cultness. Who do you protect? Why are you here? It's a privilege that you should even be able to talk to me in my inner circle. He said these things to this person. And this person said back to us, and I even repeated it back like a fool. This is next level warfare. You want to talk about the warfare that Scott does and that he talks about? Here we are. We'll see you tomorrow night. Please go and watch Monsters. It's funny, Man in America and Monsters of America. The Alfred Kinsey documentary, Monsters of America, right there at resistancechicks.com. Please sign up for our emails. You will be notified the next time we do our 3rd episode, which will be next Tuesday, probably at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Cantrells say they want to make sure that their kids get put to bed first. So all of you all go to bed yourselves. Thank you for staying. Thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing from any of you that would like to share your story with us. We're ready to listen. So we'll see you next time right here from resistancechicks.com. We love you. God loves you. God bless.